What have you done for me lately? Welcome here to an all-new edition of Tortora and Alford, a product of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, hanging out with you, Isaac Alford, myself, Dan Tortora and Alford, starting off your weeks through football season, which is what we've been doing, and we're here for you on a beautiful Monday, the first full week of October. This is Monday, October 3rd, so welcome to the broadcast. And you better be jotting down some ideas because 18 days from now is my birthday, and I want to know what y'all are going to do for it. So very excited here as we are going to be talking about Syracuse in the bye week. You don't have football going on, but that doesn't matter, as Isaac and I will bring you through every week like we always do. So Syracuse might have a week off. We do not. I'm going to keep bringing you this Syracuse coverage. Number 21 in the coaches poll, rising from 25 last week to 21, and getting into the Associated Press poll for the first time this season at number 22. The last time that Syracuse was ranked in the nation's top 25 before what we're seeing recently here over the last couple weeks was back in 2019 in the first poll ranking, and that came out in the preseason, coming off of the 10-3 season, bought into the hype of Tommy DeVito, and after that first week in 2019, have not been ranked since, and now they are ranked in both the coaches poll and the Associated Press poll, as we are here to talk with you about that and so much more. So with that being said, how you doing, Isaac?
I'm doing good. Hey, interesting you just said that since 2019 was the last time that they were ranked. So we came into off that bowl victory that year.
Yeah.
First week, who did we do? You remember who they played that first week? Did we lose, or then did we just drop out of the rankings?
Yeah, I'm pretty confident
after that first week.
That when you, I think it was.
Had a tough schedule that year to go out the very first week.
Oh yeah, it was kind of like they bought the hype and then we got punished.
Did we have an ACC opponent? No, I don't know. Did we have an ACC?
No.
I heard Baber said that this was the first year that they started with an ACC opponent. Actually, we did.
2019. Oh, it was the first week beat Liberty 24-0. That was before the world knew that Liberty was good, and then lost to Maryland 63-20.
Right.
And then lost to Clemson, and when Clemson was number
down.
1, and then beat Western Michigan, who wasn't ranked, beat Holy Cross, who wasn't ranked, lost to NC State, lost to Pitt, lost to Florida State, lost to Boston College, beat Duke, who was bad at the time, lost to Louisville, and beat Wake Forest at the end of the season.
So basically, it was maybe coming off that Maryland. I remember that Maryland loss was a real.
Yeah, the Maryland was the punch in the gut.
Yeah.
Like once that game happened, it was like, we're not ranking you anymore.
Yeah. Enough of this.
Yeah. That's why we sang "What Have You Done for Me Lately."
Yeah, exactly. No, you're just interested that you did say that because and how we kind of talked prior to the show about rankings and who goes up and who goes down. And I was like, well, if we was 19 or coming in, we was ranked that year. What did we do to lose that fast to go out in the beginning? So I guess it doesn't take much for a Syracuse program to fall. So
no, I mean it's like an immediate punishment. It's like, man, I knew we shouldn't have put them in. Like that's how they.
We got the Georgia treatment. I don't know.
Yeah, Georgia, congratulations for your win. You're not number 1 in the country anymore. So the way that they looked at this, though, that I can see some justification, is that Alabama beat Arkansas, who was ranked, and Georgia almost lost to an unranked Missouri. So looking at it, they said Alabama beat a ranked team, Georgia barely beat an unranked team, so I can understand why they flip-flopped them 1-2. Ohio State's continued to play no one, and they're 5th. They're 5-0, and they're 3rd in the country. They got 10 first-place votes in the AP, 7 in the coaches poll, which makes no sense, but there's a lot of people that like to stroke the ego of the Big Ten. Michigan, who's done absolutely nothing, is 5-0, and they're still 4th. They haven't moved out of it. And USC from the WAC-12, which is still there. USC is 5-0 in the season so far, and they stayed in the top 6. And Clemson, I mean, I can understand them being at 5 still because they beat NC State, who was ranked 10 at the time. But kind of throws you off here when you look at some of the games here. Ohio State beat Notre Dame, who was ranked 5th in the country for no reason to start the season. History and Rudy. And after that, Notre Dame hasn't been ranked the last few weeks. They beat Notre Dame, who's now unranked, beat Arkansas State, unranked, Toledo, unranked, Wisconsin, unranked, Rutgers, unranked. So the Ohio State schedule makes no logical sense. And just for fun here, I'll give you the Michigan schedule because they never have to play anybody important to be ranked. They beat Colorado State, Hawaii, UConn, Maryland, and Iowa. Unranked, 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 unranked.
Yeah, yeah, must be. And all home games.
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Okay.
Yeah, they had the big challenge of going to Iowa.
Oh yeah, the last game. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was being facetious. And if people are looking up that word, it's called sarcasm. And it's amazing how like you'll say something, and sometimes you have to say I'm being sarcastic because people go, well, this is what you said, and I'm like, you have to listen to social cues. You know?
Yeah.
A lot of people don't know social cues, but USC. Let's talk about their Pac-12 schedule. Well, they're in the Pac-12. Let's talk about who they played. They beat Rice at Stanford, which is in conference, Fresno State, Oregon State on the road, and Arizona State. So, in your nation's top 10 rankings in the country, Ohio State, Michigan, and USC in the top 6 have not beaten a single team that is currently ranked. Ohio State beat a ranked Notre Dame team. They came in ranked in the preseason, as they always do. But on actual body of work, Ohio State has not played a ranked team that's currently ranked right now. And Michigan and USC have not played a ranked team that was ranked during the process of playing them or after or before.
Right, and just looking at their schedule here, they probably won't, as it stands right now, they only technically got 2 ranked teams if they're ranked by the time they get to it on the schedule. Yeah. You know,
Penn State, Michigan.
Yeah, Penn State and Michigan, yeah, exactly.
And but look at it though. Of those 2 ranked teams that Ohio State's going to play, Michigan is 4th after beating nobody.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean? It's like, yeah, that's their ranked team. But that's the funny thing about it. Ohio State, you're like, well, they still have to play ranked Michigan, who's 4th in the country, but they're 4th in the country after beating all unranked teams. So it's this weird thing of like, you beat ranked teams and that's a reputable win. But in the case of the Big Ten, if you're all ranked in the top 25, top 5, top 10, top 15, but you haven't played anybody like Michigan and Michigan State, when Michigan and Michigan State played last year and they were both in the top 10 and one of them beat the other one, they kept them in the top 10, and it was the first ranked game that they had played. So you had Michigan played a bunch of unranked teams, Michigan State played a bunch of unranked teams. They got ranked in the top 10, so it was a top 10 duel when in actuality they hadn't beaten anybody. And then when they beat each other, because of their ranking, they barely dropped.
It's
so you're set up to succeed when you fail.
Well, it's strategy, Dad. You got to keep them ranked. That game is at the end of the season. We can't fall. We can't drop Michigan.
And the most egregious foul is when Michigan State lost to Purdue last year, who wasn't ranked. And then Purdue was put into the rankings at number 21 the next week to go, Michigan State lost to them, but look at how good they were. We just didn't know. So then they put them 21 to keep Michigan State in the top 15 and then drop Purdue the next week.
Yeah.
So they made it look like a quality loss.
Right.
By throwing them in for a week and then pulling them back out.
There's somebody's up there working with some medieval strategy to keep, some conferences relevant. I mean, if you look at it on paper, they could play whoever they want to play, but God forbid, Syracuse don't play the powerhouses.
You look at Oklahoma State, who's ranked behind all of the schools we just mentioned, and they beat a ranked Baylor on the road 36-25, and then Central Michigan, Arizona State, and Arkansas, Pine Bluff were all unranked teams, but you still have Oklahoma State actually has a win there over the Baylor team. And then you look at Tennessee, how they've started out. They beat Pittsburgh and Florida, who have dropped from the rankings now, but there's a lot of love for Tennessee. There was a lot of love for Kentucky, which there still is. They only dropped 6 spots from where they were, from 7 to 13 after their loss against a loss against Ole Miss, who was ranked 14 at the time. So, looking at, and Ole Miss goes up 5 spots to 9. So, there's some of these where it's like, okay, the SEC is playing each other, and they're playing some ranked stuff here, right? Clemson and Wake Forest both ranked, playing each other. Well, NC State, seeing that. Wake Forest beating Florida State, who was ranked at the time. So, there's some of these things that make sense. But in the case, as we open up Tortora and Alford for this first full week of October, as we take a wider look at the entire country of college football, for argument's sake, Ohio State, Michigan, USC have really not done anything to be ranked 21, let alone to be all ranked in the top 6.
Yeah, I mean, but yeah, you make a good point there. I mean, I get it when you get the conference play, but you know, the SEC, they're going to rank them top to bottom a little bit differently than they rank some of these other conferences. But then again, you have to factor in, coming into the season, who are we playing? And are they even getting challenged enough, to keep that ranking there? There's some teams out there playing some good teams on their schedule, and you look at the strength of schedule to other teams, but they can barely move anywhere up and down the scale. So,
yeah.
And it's like you say, it's just based on who you beat and when, this is a quality to win. But then after they lose, then they're all right. We're done with them on the schedule, so they can just fall out the top 25.
Yeah.
We don't need them anymore.
There's always a plan to keep certain teams in certain places. If you go season to season, the SEC, the Big Ten, and the Big 12 are typically put in higher places. They're given more leniency. I still believe that Alabama is the only team in the country that can lose 2 games in the season and make the college football playoff. We haven't seen it happen yet. However, we did see Alabama make the college football playoff the year that they didn't even play in the SEC championship. Auburn played Georgia, and Alabama watched the game and then got put into the college football playoff, and Auburn got taken out.
Yeah.
So to not even be in the championship game was insanity. And this always makes no sense to me. In the AP poll, Alabama got less first-place votes than Georgia, 25-28. But you're still number 1 because there's points. So they had 2 more points than Georgia. But that never makes sense to me when you look at all the first place rankings. You would think whoever got the most first place rankings or first place votes is first. But Georgia actually had more votes from the media to be first place, 28-25. Alabama got more in the coaches poll.
Yeah, I feel the pain because I'm like I told you before, if you're on top of the mountain, you got to beat me to take my spot. So I don't see how.
Yeah.
Subjective voting gets to flip me over. I mean, they're both 2 great teams, but I mean, hey, at least let me get beaten before you take me off my number 1 spot. So I don't know.
Go back to the year go back to the COVID year where the Big Ten and the Pac-12 said we're not going to play because safety is more important than money. And then 6 weeks in, they said, well, everybody's at the party and we're watching y'all party on Instagram. We got to get over there because we don't want to go to school the next day knowing that we didn't go to the party. And then all of a sudden, safety and health went out the window to make some money. And for multiple weeks, while the Big Ten was getting ready for the season, not only were they in the top 25 as soon as they said that they would play, but Ohio State was in the top 10. Michigan was in the top 25. And Michigan, I will never forget, rose 4 spots at 0-0.
Yeah. And don't forget, by the end of that year, they had that rule where that conference really had to play 5 games, and then
they had to play 6 games, and Ohio State didn't.
Right, because Michigan had somebody backed out of the last game, right? Wasn't it Michigan or something with COVID?
Yeah, so they had one less game, but then they allowed Ohio State to play in the Big Ten Ten championship,
right.
Which I think it should have been Northwestern.
Right.
So they let Ohio State go in because you can't sell Northwestern to these people, whatever. And so if I'm Northwestern, I'm pissed. And then they moved the college football playoff day to make sure that all the COVID positives on Ohio State were healthy to play the game.
Yeah.
So Ohio State got 2 special rules in the COVID year to get into the Big Ten championship, then to get into the college football playoff and have them wait so that they could be healthy.
Right. And they didn't start the season off at the time.
And they started 6 weeks late.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So they got to start late, get preferential treatment in their championship, and then get it again in the college football playoff.
Well, must be good to be Ohio State, I guess.
I mean, for all the things that I thought were true, all the unfair treatment, you could not have proven me more right than in a season where your conference is in the rankings with a 0-0 record while everybody else had played 6 weeks, and not only in the rankings, but rising up the rankings above teams like Michigan going above a UCF at 0-0, where UCF had been played 4 or 5 games.
Right.
So, I mean, it's that COVID year in 2020, if you go back and you look at those rankings and you chronicle everything, if you didn't think that I was telling the truth about the, sex, lies, and videotape that's been going on with the Big Ten and Notre Dame, go back and look at those rankings and show me where I was wrong about any of that. Because in the Big Ten especially, it was insane to see them in the ranking at 0-0, multiple teams in, and then to see them leapfrog other teams without even being on the field.
Oh, yeah, I mean, that's the sad thing about it. You know, you want everybody to be on a level playing field, but we know it comes to a point of, like, you know, who puts people in the stands, or what program is historical, been up there, you know. That's why, like I told you, I was rooting for Wake Forest last year to see how far they could go undefeated, how well they would climb the rankings.
I knew they were never going to be.
Yeah, you know, if it wasn't Clemson,
they wouldn't know them.
Yeah. So that's what I want to see. I sometimes I would just root for the underdog just to see how far they can take it. And Cincinnati can tell you that, you know, how, you know, they had to do a couple of years before they even got that respect to get in there.
Well, and they had to do, I mean, I can tell you from covering the American since its institution, I can tell you that Cincinnati, UCF had to go through 2 years of abuse. Houston had to go through the abuse before UCF, and then Cincinnati had to go through the year before. For all of that, it wasn't just Cincinnati. They had to literally see UCF go through it. So technically for the conference, it was 4 or 5 times. Then in that 5th time, it broke. And even that night before, when I was down in Cincinnati at the game, on site, on location at Nippert Stadium, which was phenomenal. Thank you to the University of Cincinnati, by the way, and the University of Houston, and the American Athletic Conference. Being down there at that game, that night, there were talking heads that were still that night and that morning trying to literally deliberate back and forth and give a case that Notre Dame should get in over Cincinnati, who beat them head to head.
Yeah, I mean, crazy as you say it, there are people that will try to find any excuse to elevate other programs over people. Once you beat somebody head to head, that's it. It's no argument. You know, what can you tell me? We played those guys, so they don't deserve it more than we did. And I know everybody might have a bad game, one of them, but still, hey, you had your shot at me, and we handled business.
And they were undefeated.
Yeah.
And then they're like, well, you know, if Baylor didn't beat Oklahoma State, then Oklahoma State would have gotten in. And I'm like, wait a minute. Like, these teams all had losses. Some of these teams had multiple losses. And, you know, within the last few years, I was talking to Isaac before we came on here this morning on Tortora and Alford inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from the Cafe Kubal Studios. We were talking about the fact that within the last, like, 3-4 seasons, there was top 25 ranked teams in the nation that were 6-3. I mean, there were teams that had 3 losses, 2 losses, and the American Athletic Conference couldn't have undefeated or one-loss teams be argued better than them. And they say, well, it's the strength of your conference. Okay, it's the strength of your conference. I have 2 arguments to that. One, Notre Dame doesn't have a conference, so where's their strength? Number 2, to the people that disrespected UCF, Cincinnati, and Houston for being in the American, you're trash. Shut up. You don't deserve anything. You don't deserve to call yourself champions. You don't deserve to play in the college football playoff. And then the day the Big 12 said they were taking those 3 schools, all these people were like, oh my God, we got the best teams in the country. We got the hottest teams. We're now going to be the best conference in football. I was like, wait a minute. You guys said that these schools were nothing in the American, and when they signed a sheet of paper, which I talked to the AAC Commissioner Mike Oresco about. He said, isn't it funny how they got no respect? They signed a sheet of paper with the Big 12, and the people that said that they were trash and garbage are now saying that their conference got that much better.
Yeah, you're going to see it. That's just people being,
you know,
with their opinions. But you know what? Once they do join those conferences, we'll see how competitive they are going to be from top to bottom. But you know what?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody's got a right to their opinion, but I like to watch what's been happening on the field. You know, field play speaks more than, you know, somebody saying, I think somebody on paper is this and that.
Everybody has a right to their opinion, but 5 + 5 is not blue. Some people in school turn in that sheet, and you look at them and you go, you ate paste in kindergarten.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're like, Dan, it smelled like peanut butter. Yeah, but it wasn't. But you knew it wasn't. And after the first, second, and third time, you ate it about 14 more times. You know what I mean? Goes to the brain at some point.
Exactly.
You know? Some people just need to put the pen down and step away from the paper.
Yeah.
That's it. But I mean, the reality of it all is, and the funny thing about this too, is there are Syracuse fans that are currently complaining that Syracuse is in the top 25. And that boggles my mind. Now, Syracuse beat Wagner, went up 4 spots in the coaches poll, and got into the AP poll after being unranked. After beating Wagner. Now, I want to let you all know, I'm going to look at the screen when I say this. When other teams play Duquesne, Citadel, South Carolina State, IUPUI, East Bumbletucky of the University of Kentucky, Utah through Indiana per Pittsburgh. All of these teams that are out there, when they play, the St. Mary's Academy for, when they play Xavier's Academy for Gifted Youngsters, the X-Men, when they play that one, okay, they get in here. So the reality of it all is Syracuse is actually right now, in this moment, getting treated like an SEC school or a Big Ten school, where they actually moved up and moved into a poll after beating a team that's lost 23 games in a row now, that hasn't won since October 5th of 2019, that being Wagner, in the FCS Division I AA. So you keep winning, you're undefeated. There's not a lot of undefeated teams that are left. You look at the list and you see Syracuse, Kansas, UCLA, as well as TCU, Penn State, Ole Miss, Tennessee, Oklahoma State, USC, Clemson, Michigan, Ohio State, Georgia, and Alabama are your undefeated teams, right? There's 133-ish Division 1A schools, FBS. So of over 130 schools in Division 1A FBS, you're talking about a tiny list of undefeated teams. And those undefeated teams, I believe, should be ranked in the top 25. And I'm happy to see that they are. Syracuse did what they needed to do, and they're here. And if you're going to put Ohio State, who's played pretty much nobody, and Michigan, who's played nobody, and USC, who's played nobody, if you're going to put those teams not only in the top 25 but in the top 6, then you can't sit here and tell me that you are not going to put Syracuse in, who's played a bunch of unranked teams.
Yeah, I mean, you know what? Syracuse, you know what the schedule was when it came into this season.
Right.
Nobody had them predicted at 5-0 at this point, so those guys went out and earned it. They played those games. You play who's on the schedule. Like I said, the schedule was made beforehand. So, like you say, every university does this. It's not like this was some just out of the box thinking that somebody said, hey, you know what, let's put Wagner on the schedule. And these teams play these games for a reason, and everybody do it. So, hey, they've earned it. Imagine if Syracuse would have lost a game like this. What would talking about being upset that you're now in the top 25. Imagine what the firestorm would be if they would have lost to our teams in this case. But you know what?
Yeah.
Everybody, like what the judges say, everybody has their own opinions and stuff, but you can't make everybody happy. You know what? But those will be the same fans that they'll come around and say, I knew it if Syracuse will beat a NC State or Wake Forest down the line. But, you know what? It is what it is. So
59-0, Syracuse wins the game. They win this game like you would see Clemson win a game like this, Alabama win a game like this, Georgia win a game like this. They look like those teams. Syracuse had 10 possessions. They scored on all 8 of they never lost the ball on any one of the 10 possessions. No turnovers, no turnover on downs, none of that. They scored on 8 possessions, and on the 2 possessions they didn't score on, it's not that it's like a special case type of thing, where the first half they threw a completion to Rondé Gadsden, the second ran the clock out, and then took a knee to run the clock out in the second half. So Syracuse, of 10 possessions, of the ones that ended, they scored on all 8 of those. So to me, that's 100%, because the other 2 were just to run the clock out. And on the other side of it, for the defense, Syracuse forced Wagner to punt on every single possession they had, except for one, which was the possession that Deuce Chestnut intercepted the ball from Kraft and ran it back 28 yards for a touchdown. So all Wagner did in this game was punt the ball, and the only time they didn't punt the ball is when they had an interception return for a touchdown.
Yeah, I mean, they were firing on all cylinders. I mean, like you just spoke, 600 yards or something like 50 yards. You had a defensive touchdown.
Yeah.
You know, like you said, the offense was very efficient, going up and down the field. The 100%, the 17 for 17 without a drop pass. You know, that says something about, just the players locking in. You know, it doesn't matter who the opponent is. You go out there and you try to execute the offense. You know what? And that just proves, like you said, there's a lot of times when Syracuse has been in this situation in the past, and it was a rock fight a little bit, trying to beat some of these teams.
With Villanova, who's an FCS team, and some of these other teams out there. I will tell you this. Syracuse in the first half against Wagner, and this looks like Clemson versus Citadel. So for those of you that are knocking Wagner, saying, why play this game? everybody plays these games, and a lot of teams play these games, and Syracuse had 434 total yards to Wagner's 19 total yards in the first half. Syracuse outpassed Wagner in the first half 219 and outran Wagner in the first half 234 yards to Wagner's 0. This screams Clemson Citadel. At the end of the game, we look at it, Syracuse outgained Wagner on the ground 388 rushing yards to 31 and passing yards 243 to 19, meaning that Syracuse ended the game with 631 total yards of offense to Wagner's 50.
Yeah.
Crazy.
And then you had the second team get a chance. They went down the whole lineup. Everybody got a chance to play in this game. So
that's the thing, too, to say that Syracuse shut them out 59-0, knowing that your backups were in.
Right.
Knowing that Carlos Del Rio Wilson didn't make mistakes. That cost them. LaQuint Allen didn't make mistakes that cost them. That your backup quarterback isn't throwing a pick. Your backup running back isn't fumbling the ball. Your guys that are coming in there on defense are not giving up big-time plays. Because normally at the end of games like this, where your second and third string comes in, they might get a score, at least a field goal.
Right.
So what it says about Syracuse is 1, 2, 3 deep. Like Jawan, who came in third string running back, he didn't do anything wrong, and he almost scored. So...
Right.
when you go back and you look at the film, you say Syracuse didn't just beat Wagner 59-0. They beat Wagner 59-0 with their first, second, and third string.
Yeah, and you know what I like taking for this game is that the coaches really put a game plan in, and the players were able to execute it and be real efficient to that game plan. And that's just a testament to what we see so far throughout these first 5 games of the season. Not every game is going to be perfect, but those guys find a way to make the plays. And you know what? You got a chance to take a glimpse at like we said after the game, some of the future players that want to have an opportunity to step up. They got their chance to get into the game, because game time and practice time is totally different, and you never know what a player is going to do until you give them an opportunity to play. So it was nice to see that, and maybe hopefully knock on wood, they can stay healthy. And you don't have to see some of these guys in crucial points down the line in the season. But you know what? At least they can take this under their belt and say, hey, yeah, we went into these games and we executed and did what we had to do to come up with the victory.
Yeah, and we have a lot to talk about, a lot to break down from this Wagner game, as well as Syracuse getting to 5-0. This is your bye week blitz, is what I call it on here, in Tortora and Alford, a product of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, inside of the Cafe Football studios. If you are on the road, hopefully you are listening and not watching right now. Watch us when you're not driving. And so definitely continue to tune in all throughout this very special broadcast of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as we feature Tortora and Alford with Isaac Alford and myself, Dan Tortora. Plenty coming up with Syracuse, the number 21 ranked team in the nation in the coaches poll, and the number 22 ranked team in the Associated Press poll, in that AP poll for the first time this season and the first time in 3 years. So very excited with all that we have to talk about in this bye week for Syracuse, as well as a look at overall their 5-0 start, what all of those statistics look like, what Syracuse has done to their opponent, and what they have accomplished, as well as taking a look at the next 7 games, which will truly be a gauntlet for the Syracuse Orange. That's all coming up after this fast break. In the meantime, head off to Cafe Football, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, and 401 South Salina Street in Syracuse. Also on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, New York, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road in North Syracuse, right by the airport. So make sure you find your way over there. And for those of you out of town, thank you for watching and listening on the East Coast, the Midwest, the West Coast, and all around the country, to the aliens hovering above the world going, I ain't gonna mess with those humans because they're crazy. Thank you for listening as well. We come in peace. How do I do it? There we go. We come in peace. So cafecuball.com for all of you that are outside of Central and Upstate New York and outside of this atmosphere. So we'll be back right after this fast break on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Much more coming up as we break down the 5-0 Syracuse Orange. Who thought it? Probably nobody. And this is where they're at. 7 games to go, needing 1 for eligibility. We'll talk about it after this.
Carvel DeWitt, it's what happy tastes like. Do you know why? Because we make ice cream. Creamy, rich, flavorful ice cream. Not yogurt or iced milk like some of our competitors. Ice cream. Fresh, by hand, daily. For the calorie conscious, we have something new for you. Our new Carvelite. Same great flavor, creaminess, and texture of our regular ice cream with only 35 calories an ounce. So whether you want an ice cream cake, flying saucer, dasher, carvalanche, hard or soft ice cream, we will satisfy your craving with our fresh, handmade regular or new Carvelite ice cream. Carvel DeWitt. It's what happy tastes like.
Cafe Cabal offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Cabal needs. Cafe Cabal, coffee for the soul.
The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is located on 3680 Milton Avenue in the Home Depot Plaza. It is your family-friendly sports bar and restaurant. Folks, some sports bars aren't family-friendly. Some family-friendly restaurants are not sports bars. The Wildcat Sports Pub in Camillus, New York is proud to be both. It is that marriage that you've been looking for years. The Wildcat Sports Pub is your home base for your sports bar and restaurant needs, games for the kids, indoor and outdoor activities, and enough things on the menu to come back every single week and get to try something new. They're open Sundays from noon to 8 p.m., Monday through Wednesday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m., and Thursday through Saturday from 11 a.m. to midnight. For reservations and party information, call 315-487-2222 for the Wildcat family-friendly sports pub and restaurant. This is a special message from Merritt Brady, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Watertown on 1290 Arsenal Street in Watertown, New York.
Chick-fil-A for me has always been about the people. I think it starts with the strength and leadership of the Cathy family. It's just amazing to see a family-run business reach the altitude that they have. Second mile service is something that we embodied at my previous business, and the ability to make people feel like they're the only person at your establishment, that you are there to serve them that day and looking for those extra ways to make them happy, to anticipate what they need next is what makes me tick. And I'm going to have so many opportunities at Chick-fil-A to do that. It's one of my favorite things to eat in the world. My favorite application question or interview question when I'm interviewing is when I get to, have you ever eaten at Chick-fil-A? And a smile hits both their ears. You know, they can't even answer the question for a second. And when I see that, it's like, man, that's going to be a great hire. They already get it. They already feel it. They already know that we're different. The Chick-fil-A experience, it's a real thing. And then, of course, just our generosity and community involvement and making a positive impact in the lives of our team members, our guests, and the community in general, I think is really the secret sauce.
Chick-fil-A Watertown on 1290 Arsenal Street in Watertown, New York. Coming to you, fall 2022. And a welcome back here inside of the Cafe Cabal Studios, hanging out with you where sports meets life. This is Tortora and Alford here in the bye week Blitz inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. If you haven't already, make sure that you follow, like, all the good stuff on Facebook at Wake Up Call DT, Twitter at Call DT, and Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. The main topic inside of MON-FRI's What's Poppin' to start off the first full week of October is Syracuse and the football team. Ranked number 21 in the coaches poll, moving up 4 spots from 25 to 21. So coaches poll for 2 weeks in a row, and for the first time this season in the AP poll at number 22. So with that being said, a lot of stuff to get into, a lot to unpack here. One of the things I want to look at is the fact that Sean Tucker is now rising above the ranks and he is 7th all-time in career yardage for Syracuse football players. Joe Morris, first, 4,299. Walter Reyes, may he rest in peace, 3,424. DeLon Carter, 3,104, a Colt and a Jaguar. Larry Zonka, who played for the Dolphins, 2,934. James Mongrel, who's here in our community, number 5 with 2,869. Floyd Little, may my very good friend rest in peace, 2,750. And Sean Tucker now at 2,668. In this game itself, I believe he had passed Bill Hurley, who is now 11th, Mo Neal, who's 10th now, D. Brown, who is 9th, and David Walker, who's 8th. So David Walker, 26.39, D, 26.26, Mo, 25.60, Bill Hurley, 25.51. So Sean Tucker, in just 26 games, he played 9 games 2 seasons ago, so played 9 games. Last season played 12, and has played 5 in this. So in total, looking from 2020 to 2021 and here in 2022, in 26 games, he has already gotten to 2,668 yards, hasn't even played a full 3 seasons. And even if he plays an entire season this season, doesn't have a full 3 seasons. So looking at this, saying that you have each season is 12 games in the regular season. So to look at that and say, okay, 12 and 12 is 24, he's played the equivalent of 2 seasons and 2 games. So in just a little bit over 2 seasons of play, he's already in the top 7, and arguably he will pass Floyd Little, James Mongrel, and get in the top 5 this season, if not higher.
Yeah, I think he might even get higher than that. That was going to be my question to you is, do you think he even gets maybe in the top 3 by the end of the season? I mean, he's only, 26-something? You have another 500 yards?
Yeah. If he gets another 500 yards, he'll be in the top 3.
Yeah, exactly. Easy. I mean, not easy. I mean, yeah, it's tough yardage to get, but you can see 7 games. I can see Sean getting 500 yards within the next 7 games. So, but yeah, that's very interesting. Like you said, he doesn't have the equivalent of a full 2 seasons yet, and he's already in the top 10, top 7. Special player, man. You know what? And it was good to see him come out this last game, get his legs stretched out there and get a couple of long runs there, because I know that was the question a lot of fans want to know, what's wrong with Sean Tucker. I mean, other universities got players that play good defense too. It's not going to be a cakewalk every weekend and week out, but he's proven himself on this stage, so we know what he has. It's just a process of getting the offensive line back in the gelling together and, getting shots. All it takes is a defender to miss the wrong gap or whatever the case may be, and he finding a hole and taking it to the house. And you can see how when he gets in the open, rarely does anybody catch him from behind.
Yeah, to really bring it into perspective, for Sean Tucker to get 500 yards on the nose in the next 7 games, he only has to rush for 71 yards per game.
Right.
He doesn't even need 100 yards for all these games coming up. So if Sean Tucker can rush for 71 yards for each of the next 7 games, he will be in the top 3.
Yeah, easy. Yeah.
In Syracuse football history. And in order for him, now arguably, he could even vie to fight Walter Reyes if he did really well in these next few games here. So if you look at it and say, let's say he gets 100 yards in each of the next 7 games, so that's 700 yards. Then you look at his 26.68, you add the 700 to it, that would make 33.68, which would put him very, very close to Walter Reyes, still behind him. In order to pass Reyes and Joe Morris, he'd have to stay for another year.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely.
But DeLon Carter, Larry Zonka, James Mongrel, Floyd Little, an opportunity for him to pass all of them, and he passed multiple. And by the way, I got a message from David Walker, D. Brown, and Mo Neal after this game, and I want to read these off here to you. So Mo Neal had put something out on Twitter, and I believe he texted me back too as well. But Mo had put out something very nice here about it and how proud he was in the moment. And so to go back, and I want to quote Mo specifically, because here it is. He put, "Yes, sir, Lil Bruh, the truth." and he put hashtag salute with an orange heart and an orange itself. And then hearing from the other gentleman, David Walker, said, good stuff, good win for the Cuse. And D. Brown also put out a kind note there talking about the historical day. So everybody said nice things about him. And shout out to not only 3 great Syracuse running backs, but 3 of my friends. David Walker, who is out there coaching the Chicago Bears running backs. D. Brown, who's coaching in high school and doing an awesome job out there as well. And Mo Neal, who has an opportunity in the XFL draft of 2023 coming up here after he showed out. And Mo, who is just a fantastic human being. And him and I just got together actually a couple months ago. So big shout out to D. Brown, Mo Neal, as well as David Walker, Bill Hurley, Damian Rhodes, and so on and so forth. Also of note here, to let you know, to those that obviously know Ernie Davis for the number 44, Sean Tucker passed Ernie Davis, 2,386 yards. Ernie is now 13th. And when you look at the attempts, Joe Morris had 813 attempts, Walter Reyes 625. DeLon Carter had more, 646 than Walter, 594 for Zonka, 529 for Mungro, Littlehead 512, Sean Tucker 493 attempts already. So if you look at that and you break it down here, folks, and let's do this math together, shall we? 2,668 divided by the 493 carries is, for his career in 26 games, averaging 5.4 yards a carry.
Yeah, I mean, and have 5.4 yards a carry, that says a lot for a back, because a lot of these guys, and like you brought up Ernie Davis. I mean, is that over a 3-year time period? Because back in those days, they had like a freshman squad and type deal. So he didn't even really play as they call it, varsity level at that time. But Sean's still putting in the work. Because like you said, he went from 4th string to number 7 all time. On this list in his time here in Syracuse. That says a lot about his capabilities.
Dino's biggest plus as the head coach of this team was a happy accident. When in 2020 he had Jarvion Howard and Abdul Adams opt out of the season. Jawar Jordan Jr. got injured and then eventually transferred out. And in that season, with 2 guys opting out and an injury to Jawar Jordan, he had to play Sean Tucker and Cooper Lutz. And Sean Tucker is when he really showed out and had over 600 yards that year. And then last year set the single-season record above Joe Morris's record, which is insane. By the way, to take a look at this, Joe Morris, Walter Reyes, Joe Morris, 5.3 yards a carry for his career. Walter Reyes, 5.5. James Mungro, Floyd Little, and Sean Tucker, 5.4 yards a carry. David Walker, D. Brown, and Mo Neal, who he just passed, all 5.3 yards a carry. Ernie Davis, 6.6 yards a carry. Kyle McIntosh, another good friend of mine, 5.1 yards a carry. And the man who you would not have put here because he chose not to wear number 44, so people sometimes forget. Joe Morris, what did Joe Morris, Floyd Little, Ernie Davis, and Jim Brown all not do? They didn't average as many yards a carry as this man, averaging in his career 5.7 yards a carry, which, if I'm correct, is the best in Syracuse history. One of my closest friends, someone I consider a brother, and if I ever meet a woman who's not crazy, will be standing up there with me when I get married, Robert Mother freaking Drummond. Number 36 is the number he wore, and he leads all Syracuse players all time with and second all time with 5.7 yards a carry, only to Jim Brown, who had 6.2. So Jim Brown, 6.2 yards a carry, Rob Drummond, 5.7, Ernie Davis, Floyd Little, Joe Morris, everybody else behind him. Robert Drummond, in yards per carry for his career at Syracuse, is the second best running back in history, only to Jim Brown.
Yeah, that speaks a lot, A lot of great backs that came through this program, you know what I'm saying?
That's what that is.
Yeah.
That's a wake you up. That's a true wake-up call. That that's a Dave Chappelle player haters ball smack. So, get to know that. I know Rob won't, say it, but I'm going to say it for you, my brother. So, congratulations to you. Jim Brown first, Rob Drummond second. And what have they done to celebrate Rob Drummond? Nothing. So, Syracuse, you've celebrated Floyd Little a million times. I love it. Jim Brown a little bit. Joe Morris one time in 1,000 years. And you obviously celebrate Ernie Davis with Legends Field. But the one person that you have failed to celebrate lives 15 minutes from the Dome and should have number 36 retired, and that is Rob Drummond. So I'll wait, but 5.7 yards a carry only to Jim Brown. I think it's time you retired that. And he's in the top 15 for yards overall in the history. He was number 14. And now is number 15 with Sean Tucker, rising up the ranks.
You know what? Keep yelling it out, Dave. Put it out there. So the more you keep it out there in the atmosphere, maybe somebody will
I'm going to have a candlelight vigil for this, okay? So Witty Wicks here, folks. This is Namaste at Home, which is all about bringing you peace.
There you go.
Okay? And we're going to Namaste as much as we have to. But Rob and I told Dino to run the ball for 6 years, and it finally is happening, right? And so, like you said, put it in the universe. If you think Jim Brown, Ernie Davis, Floyd Little, and Larry Zonka are great, besides Jim Brown, who has a better yards per carry, nobody but Rob Drummond. 5.7. And Rob in his career, 5.7 yards a carry. One of the seasons they moved him to wide receiver, so he would have had more rushing yards. 2,246. And Coach Mack put him as a receiver, then moved him back when realized that wasn't helping. So 5.7 yards a carry, despite the fact that he got moved to receiver for a season. 22.46 in total career rushing yards despite that, and almost 400 carries with 393. So, and by the way, receiving-wise, for Rob Drummond, he averaged over 10 yards per catch. By the way, on that too. Finished his time at Syracuse with 2,687 total yards and 19 touchdowns. And I bring up Rob Drummond in 1987 as well, the last time Syracuse went undefeated, because the last time Syracuse started a season off 5-0 was in 1987, which was 35 years ago with Rob Drummond's team.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while around here since we've seen that type of success, and we know what the 87 team did, and of course, we're hoping that this year's squad can keep the games going and piling the W's up in that win column. So, you know what? Sometimes it takes special players and special teams every so often to do great things. And you know what? It doesn't happen often, but you know what? You just take time and be happy and enjoy the times that you get to witness these moments.
Yeah. Syracuse doing very well in the running backs of history. I still think Syracuse should brand themselves as RBU because it would be immediately effective. I don't think you would have to sell it to anybody. And if you talk to any of these young kids getting recruited and I ask them, do you know anything about Syracuse? If they know anything, 99.9% of the time, they say, I saw the movie The Express, and I love what Ernie Davis did, and I love his story. So if the kids know anything, it's about the running back history. So get to know it and get to know all those numbers because Joe Morris, Walter Reyes, DeLon Carter, Larry Zonka, James Mungro, Sean Tucker, David Walker, D. Brown, Mo Neal, and on and on and on and on. Rob Drummond, Kyle McIntosh did not wear number 44.
Yeah. There's a lot of great players that came through this program. You know what? And then we were talking, I'll bring up a name that you probably, I know a lot of people are like, oh, boo. But Dr. Gross, to me, prior to him being the AD, I didn't really know too much about Syracuse history and a lot. And you used to go in the dome and you looked around. There really wasn't much up in the rafters talking about anybody in the place. But like you said, you got all these great players that came through this program. And since his time and up until time forward now, you slowly but surely you start to see this stuff come out where they're honoring the players. And like you said, they did a lot with the 44 and all that stuff, and a lot of that's controversial now with the number, but you know, you got to celebrate it when those give them, as we say, give them the flowers, because you never know. There's a lot of history at Syracuse University. It's just not just the running backs, tight end position. and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
the Mackey Awards are named after SU player.
Where's
So.
John Mackey's jersey?
Yeah, exactly.
Where's Art Monk's jersey?
Exactly. And you know what? There's a lot of players, and then that's just
Where's Marvin Harrison's jersey?
Yeah.
Where's Kevin Kevin Johnson, for goodness sakes, and everything he did.
Nah,
they finally did McNabb. They finally got Donovan McNabb. Finally got Don McPherson there.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, there are a ton of players that I'm still sitting here going, oh, where's that guy? Where's that guy? What? I mean, for goodness, Gary Anderson played 115 years in the NFL as a kicker.
Yeah.
So where is he?
Right.
There's so much Syracuse history that kids don't know because there's no, I mean, they walk into the Dome and there's no recollection of it.
Mm-hmm.
And for basketball, I mean, for goodness sakes, your leading scorer in career points, Lawrence Moten, took forever to get him in there.
Mm-hmm.
John Wallace. I mean, there are guys that should have been up there forever. And then you have Felicia Leggett-Jack, who I think was the whole ploy to get her here. Mm-hmm. That was the beginning of it, is that they retired her jersey as the first women's basketball jersey ever retired at Syracuse. But there's people that have played in the WNBA from Syracuse. There's a bunch of players that should be retired. And, so shout out to Felicia, but I would hope that she would even tell you, yeah, I'm one of them, but there should be 5 or 6 up there.
Yeah, and there's probably a lot of gold jacket Syracuse players that probably don't have their name up there just yet. So, and it's been slow, to say the least, for that to happen. But you know what? Hopefully those guys get their due and their time in the spotlight, because I know it means a lot to them, and you see them with their families once they do get that recognition. And this community, I give this community credit. They don't forget you. Syracuse family is strong. Every time I see those ceremonies when they do kind of raise their names up in the rafters, there's always tremendous support, and it feels good to come back and be recognized. But let's just hope that it can happen a lot sooner than it takes 30, 40 years to get somebody's name and recognition up there. You want to get it during your era and during the time that, like you say, you recruiting kids. Some of these kids are watching you probably play professional ball, but they don't even realize where you came from in college.
Yeah.
So.
Well, and that's, I mean, it's just crazy to me to not have this. By the way, Eric Dungy cracked the top 25 as a quarterback in rushing yards with 1,993 at Syracuse. And, I mean, going down the line from, just looking at the players that got to 2,000 yards, folks, a lot of these are in recent history. But just to name them off, 1, 2, to all of them. Joe Morris, and I'm going to go from number 1 all the way down, that got at least 2,000 yards at Syracuse in their history there on the ground. Joe Morris, Walter Reyes, DeLon Carter, Larry Zonka, James Mungro, Floyd Little, Sean Tucker, David Walker, D. Brown, Mo Neal are the top 10. Bill Hurley, Damian Rhodes, Ernie Davis, Kyle McIntosh, Rob Drummond, Jerome Smith, James Covington, Malcolm Thomas, Antoine Bailey, Curtis Brinkley, Marty Jankowitz, as well as Prince Tyson Gully and Michael Owens. And I can tell you proudly, Prince Tyson Gully, Michael Owens, Antoine Bailey, Jerome Smith, Rob Drummond, Kyle McIntosh. Let me see here. Mo Neal, D. Brown, David Walker, Sean Tucker, Floyd Little, James Mungro, DeLon Carter, Walter Reyes, and Joe Moore. I've had 15 of the 23 players on the show that got at least 2,000 yards. So somebody's going to talk about history, and you can definitely stamp it right here at Wake Up Call. As I've said before, if nobody else does it, I'm going to do it. If everybody else does it, I'm going to do it, because I don't do what everybody else is going to do. I'm honoring. I tell players, if you played one down, if you were a preferred walk-on, a walk-on, practice squad, or if you're the best player in Syracuse history, there is not a single player that I will turn away from my show. If you are a good, upstanding citizen that, was connected to this program in any way, shape, or form, I have no problem having you on the show. And I have reached out to people. If we haven't talked to you yet, it's because we haven't connected yet. But 15 of 23 of the 2,000-yard rushers have been on this show. And that is on purpose. And, Ernie Davis would have been on here too and passed away. So, on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, if Syracuse and I've said this before, if Syracuse University isn't going to honor you, I still will. So in the Wake Up Call archives, you are all worthy of being on here, and it's not even a question. So thank you for everything you've done for Syracuse. Thank you for representing my city well. Thank you for being amazing. And please understand and always know that whether or not anybody else tells your story, you are always welcome to come through the doors of Wake Up Call and tell your story here.
No, and I'm pretty sure they appreciate that, and that is definitely a good thing to do. You know what? Keep people's names out there, like we said, in the atmosphere. And, you know, there's a lot of history to learn. And if you're a dedicated player, and if you add a program, you owe that to learn the history of that program. Definitely do that. So, yeah.
And, hold on, Rob Drummond. Oh, wait, hold on. Rob Drummond. I just took all those out the air. So, you know, at some point, Syracuse might want to take a look at number 36. And the fact that not only is he in the top 15 in career yardage as a running back, and number 2 to Jim Brown in yards per carry in his career, but also was a part of the 1987 undefeated team that Syracuse has not been undefeated in over 3 decades since then, and only undefeated in 2 seasons. In 1959, when Ernie Davis and the team won the school's only national championship, and in 1987.
Yeah, and we should have won a Heisman in '87 too.
Yeah,
but I stay away from that team in Notre Dame that took it away from us. But but yeah.
Oh, look, Notre Dame again.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah, the craziness of it all. So we will take a step aside for a fast break. When we come back, Isaac and I, inside of Tortora and Alford, a part of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, are going to take a look at the ACC and where things are here as we take a look back at this past week, as well as what's coming up in Syracuse's bye week, as most of the ACC, besides Syracuse, will be playing their games. And we'll take a look at Syracuse's overall statistics through the first 5 weeks of the season. Plenty more coming up where sports meets life on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, New York, as well as on 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse. Make your way out to Cafe Kubal today, and for those of you out of town, simply go to cafekubal.com. In these unique times, there are those in our community that give us a sense of normalcy and positivity. Pizza Man on 50 Oswego Street in Baldwinsville has been here for you for over 35 years and is here now. Call 315-638-1234 or order online at pizzamanbeville.com to bring those familiar tastes into your home. And remember to come see our monthly on-site broadcasts centered around the community and our Baldwinsville beats. Pizza Man in Baldwinsville. Any way you slice it, they are always here for you.
This is Jimmer Sikowski, owner-operator of Chick-fil-A Cicero, 7916 Brewerton Road in Cicero, right in front of the Home Depot. I had a deep feeling that God wanted me to do something bigger with my life and to help people, help others. I kept putting Chick-fil-A in my life, and I realized as I was going through the franchise selection process that positively impacting the lives of others was really core to what we do here at Chick-fil-A. First of all, it starts with the food. The food is brought in fresh daily. We bring in local produce. We prepare to order in the kitchen. We hand bread our chicken. We hand spin our milkshakes. It's great food. It doesn't taste like fast food. I think the second thing is the way people feel when they come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. It's different. We try to treat people with intentional kindness here, which is very different and deeper than good customer service. And so I think it feels remarkable for most people to come in a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then lastly, the impact that we try to have in the community is very different. It's a big part of the expectation of every operator of a Chick-fil-A restaurant is that they're act actively engaged in their community, they're a leader in the community, and they're making a difference. When they realize that what we're striving to do is to shine a little light in their life, that's a very, very different experience than you will have at any other quick service restaurant. And it's that remarkable experience that I think people will emotionally connect with.
I'm George Townsend of Honda City with some good advice when buying a new car. The true cost of owning a new car is determined by the appraised value when you trade it. No vehicle appraises higher than a Honda. Next, look for low APRs and deep discounts. You also want low maintenance costs and great fuel economy. That's why my advice to you is to buy a new Honda. Looking pre-owned, visit our Honda Certified Used Car Center. Honda City, 7140 Henry Clay Boulevard, Liverpool, or HondaCity-CNY.com.
It would be a pity if you don't shop at Honda City.
Our corporate purpose at Chick-fil-A is to glorify God by being faithful stewards of all that's entrusted to us and to positively influence all those who come in contact with Chick-fil-A. And what became increasingly clear from our success in Cicero is that people love Chick-fil-A. And also I think we recognized that, we had a great opportunity to grow the brand and grow our platform. I felt incredibly grateful when I was selected to be a Chick-fil-A operator. I think what it's meant for me, what I've come to realize on a very deep level is that this is a calling for me. It's not a career. It's not a job. The Lord called me to be a Chick-fil-A operator and to use these restaurants to glorify Him and to positively influence other people. I'm blessed. I'm very blessed.
Head to Chick-fil-A Clay on 3974 State Route 31 in Liverpool, New York. Welcome back here inside of the Cafe Kubal studios to Tortora and Alford, a product of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, as we are talking about Syracuse and what I call every season the bye-week Blitz. Syracuse is ranked number 21 in the coaches poll, rising up 4 spots from last week's 25, which puts them in the coaches poll for 2 weeks this season, and for the first time ever in the AP poll this season. First time ever this season, number 22. And the last time they were in both of these polls was 3 years ago in 2019, coming off of their 10-3 season and a win in the Camping World Bowl, which is now called the Cheez-It Bowl. And how many Cheez-Its you have to buy to pay for that bowl?
I don't know.
How many boxes, right? Well, I mean, back then the box was $2.99, and now, in the current state of America, it's probably $7 a box.
Yeah, easy.
So looking at that, I guess it's a little bit easier now. But Syracuse coming off the 10-3 season without Eric Dungy and some other players, the people that are selecting in these polls, the powers that be, were buying into the hype of what Syracuse could still be without some of their players, and Syracuse was ranked for that first week and then was dropped out right in the beginning of the season after a massive loss to Maryland. And after that, we have not seen Syracuse in the polls the rest of 2019, 2020, 2021, and now here in 2022, they are back. And Syracuse in control of their own destiny. If they win another game of their next 7, they're bowl eligible. They can stay undefeated. It's all up to them at this point. Yes, their schedule is going to get difficult. We'll talk about it. But Syracuse is in the driver's seat. They have to win one of the next 7 to get into the bowl game. And if they continue to win, then more than likely they'll stay in the top 25.
Definitely they'll stay in the top 25 because I think what we talked about, out of the next 7 opponents, 5 are ranked, something weird like that, maybe 4 now with Pittsburgh falling out. But definitely they got it all laid out in front of them. They got to do it, take care of their own business, worry about themselves. Go off in this bye week and get a little healthy, get a little extra week to study NC State. NC State coming off that loss to Clemson, and then now they have to face, I believe, a Florida State squad. So, that's, NC State going to have to come out and try to show their A game 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah.
So that's real kind of beneficial for Syracuse. It's not like NC State's playing another lower tier team where they can kind of put it on cruise control, but they really got to come out and try to win. They can't afford to go 2 games down in the division. So Syracuse is going to definitely get a chance to see the next opponents, what they really like to do, what their trends and tendencies are. So, but yeah, they got it laid out for them. It's going to be a good task for those guys to try to navigate through this rest of the season.
Tortora and Alford here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora to bring you through your bye week. And of course, Isaac Alford, myself, Dan Tortora here with you, giving you our quick pregame, our quick postgame videos right there at the Dome. And then, of course, giving you these extended broadcasts throughout this season, which are being my better half in this. So I appreciate it very much so. So Isaac and I having some fun here. And thank you to all of you that have watched and listened around the world for all of your kindness and generosity of your time you have taken to the Tortora and Alford broadcast inside a Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. So we thank you so much for celebrating with us and watching and listening to these wherever you are all over the world. You gave us a perfect segue into what's coming in the ACC. And right before we cross that bridge that you put us on, I do want to make one more note about Sean Tucker. We've seen him go down 3 times in 5 games. Thoughts on his durability and any nervousness you have seeing him go down, and then kind of a comma to that, the fact that they even put him out there in the second half where he only carried the ball 1 time, got 5 yards, but went down again.
Yeah, apparently, yeah. I mean, I think when you got a back like Tucker, you want to give him the ball, but yet then necessarily this is football. So,
yeah,
injuries happen, and, as far as them putting them back out there, I thought the starters did what they had to do in the first half. It was just, I know Dino said in the press conference they made halftime adjustments, and they want to give the first team a series. I'd take it, but you know what, just to see what adjustments. But, I mean, at 49-0, I mean, and the quarterback, I don't know what his efficiency was. I know he didn't miss a pass. I don't know what other adjustments you had to make.
Yeah.
At half. You could have did that with the backups if he still was doing adjustments. But I think he was also chasing a single game record too. But you know what? He's, thank goodness he got up off the ground. He wasn't too seriously hurt. Like you said, that's the 3rd time he's been down this year. And you know what? It just, again, those guys know. Hopefully they'll take care of their bodies and get in the training room and get the necessary treatments they need. But you can't shy away from contact or shy away from putting a player in the game, because it's the moments those players think about getting injured is when it's going to happen. Where they got to play physical, and I think that's the key to, I think, Dino realizing being in the Atlantic Division, even with the stretch of last year when they came down, I think they needed 1 game. And then out of the last 3, and it was real physical teams, you just got to be that physical player. You can't just shy away from it. If you do, the football guys will probably look down on you and say, aha, you're not trying to play this game the correct way. And then, lo and behold, something might happen. But, yeah, definitely they I think they kind of caught themselves after you said he played that one play in the second half, and then they're like, okay, enough of that.
Yeah.
Maybe chasing a record is not always the best thing, No. It'll come naturally if it happens, you know what. But there were some runs he had that was taken back because of penalties and holdings. I looked at some of that, and maybe he would have had the record then if some of those calls was made. But it wasn't meant to be in the game, So, you know what, I think they'll get him back where he need to be for this stretch run.
Yeah, and one of his touchdowns was take it back, right? And so his Sean Tucker single game record is Joe Morris, who had 252 yards back in 1979 against Kansas, who ironically is ranked in the top 25 now. This is how close everything was. All Sean Tucker needed was 21 yards. 21 yards was all he needed to go from 6 to 1, because Joe Morris had 252, Walter Reyes had 241 rushing yards against UCF in 2003, D. Brown had 239 in 2000 against Rutgers, Walter Reyes had 237 in 2004 against Rutgers, Damian Rhodes had 236 in 2005 against Buffalo. So Sean Tucker is now 6th all-time single game rushing yards of 232, but all he needed from 6 to 1, once again, was 21 yards, which would have given him 253 to go above Joe Morris. And that touchdown they took back, he would have been really close.
It had to be. Wasn't that touchdown at least about 20-something yards?
I think it would have. I know that he passed Mo Neal on a 21-yard run, which was ironic because Mo wore number 21 at Syracuse. And, but stuff like that's been happening. Like Aaron Judge, 61 years later, and then both being a Yankee and Roger Maris. But, yeah, I mean, Sean Tucker with a couple of these runs here. And, by the way, anything that was negated on Sean Tucker's yardage in this game against Wagner was not him.
Right.
His net yards were his yards gained. Sean Tucker, in 23 carries, did not lose a single yard on his own. So his net and his gain, which I really want to make a note of this, because as good as running backs are, if you go back and look at games, the best ones will lose a yard, 5 yards, 10 yards. Sean Tucker did not lose a single yard. All 232 was net on 23 carries, which means he averaged a first down per carry with 10.1. And I know you're going to say, Dan, it's Wagner. But in his career in 26 games, he's averaged over 5 yards a carry, 5.4. And those games, when you look back at them, Clemson, NC State, Florida State, Boston College, Louisville, and so on and so forth, Wake Forest, that when you look at his entire 26 games, he's averaging over 5 yards a carry, halfway to a first down. But I understand that they wanted to get him this. However, I would not have played him a single down in the second half.
No, I wouldn't either. I think he was even asked a question going into halftime, will we see the end of the first string? And, the coach was kind of coy in his reply, even going into the locker room. So, yeah, I wouldn't have played him. It wasn't, again, they did their work in the first half, It was time to go to the second team. And you know what? It's water under the bridge now, but yeah, definitely they dodged a bullet there on that one. So,
and to everybody that's knocking him, saying, "Oh, he would have had the record against Wagner," again, reading them off: Kansas, UCF, Rutgers, and Buffalo are all of the teams that Joe Morris, Walter Reyes, D. Brown, Walter Reyes has 2 of them. So Joe Morris, Walter Reyes, D. Brown, and Damian Rhodes, all of those records that are better than Sean Tucker were twice against Rutgers, once against Buffalo, once against UCF, and against Kansas. So none of those teams were the greats of history.
Yes, and exactly. I mean, only Floyd Little did it against a Tennessee team.
Prince Tyson Gully against West Virginia.
Yeah. Larry Zonka against West Virginia. So, you know what? Yeah, sometimes these are the games where you may catch a great player catch, a moment where he can do something really, really special. And I bet you that's kind of what the coaching staff was looking at. They probably went into halftime and it's like, hey, somebody had to whisper into their ears and say, hey, Sean's got 20-something yards to get, to get to that record. So they'll probably be, hopefully, I would hate to see him leave this year. And just me being greedy, the fan.
Yeah.
Hopefully we might see him next year against, another opponent of that stature. Maybe he'll have a special day to put in the record books.
Yeah, and you look back at this, so many records that he either has or he's close to. Speaking of Sean Tucker, single game rushing touchdowns, Jim Brown, and again, Jim Brown, 6 touchdowns. He has the most single game rushing touchdowns in Syracuse history. In 1956, he did it against Colgate. And then Floyd Little had 5 against Kansas in 1964, and Walter Reyes tied that in 2003 against Notre Dame. And then Sean Tucker is already on this list, but he would have been on this list twice if that touchdown didn't get called back yesterday. Sean Tucker has 4 touchdowns against Albany. He would have had 4 against Wagner. DeLon Carter had against Wyoming and Colgate 4, Damian Rhodes against Buffalo, Walter Reyes against UCF, David Walker against Pittsburgh, and Floyd Little against West Virginia. All of them have had 4 touchdowns to have the 3rd most single-game rushing touchdowns in Syracuse history. So he's already in the top 3 with that. And then in single-season rushing touchdowns, he's already on that list. He is most single-season yards, beating Joe Morris last year with 1,496 to take first place over Joe Morris's 1,372. And in a single game, he almost got that one, and we know he's in the top 7 right now in career rushing yards. So I believe that it's fair to say that Sean Tucker, yet another player who didn't wear 44, is more than deserving to be talked about for the rest of time.
Yeah, exactly. And hopefully that 34 get put somewhere up in the Dome Raptors.
Oh, they'll retire that before
Christmas.
Drummond.
Yeah, you think so?
Oh, yeah. They'll retire Sean Tucker the year after he leaves.
Yeah. Which, to be honest with you, I think it should be more recent than waiting. I know sometimes they want to wait till they have an NFL career, blah, blah, blah. Blah, blah, blah.
They got to recruit now, though. They got to sell that.
That's what I'm saying. You got to take advantage of it while the iron's hot. You can't just wait till a player.
Well, I don't think they would have retired Tim Green or honored Tim. I don't think they would have done anything for Tim Green if he didn't have ALS.
Yeah. That's
because look at how many years they waited to do nothing.
Yeah.
He played in the NFL, played here in our community of Central and Upstate New York, and so did Rob Drummond. So
who's the tight end that they just recognized? I'm losing his name, Chris Gedney.
And that was
they just got Gedney in
after he passed away.
Was it after too? I thought they just got it in before. It was after.
I think it was after.
Right. It could. I mean, leave it to Syracuse, but I was thinking somebody just did get it in there. But
they also honored him 3 months after they fired him at Syracuse.
Right.
So they didn't put in that whole ceremony honoring. They didn't say that they had actually parted ways with him before that.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's definitely in Joe Morris, for goodness sakes, for everything that he did for Syracuse, leading in rushing yards in career, was leading in a single season before he was beat out by Sean Tucker, and is still leading in single game. So at one time he had all 3 of those records. The only reason why he doesn't have all 3 of those is that Sean Tucker broke one last year. But Joe Morris leading in career rushing yards, single season rushing yards, and single game rushing yards. And Joe Morris has only been honored once, and I think that was his first time invited back to Syracuse in like decades.
Yeah. I mean,
so
it speaks for itself. I mean, you want to do it again when people know who you are and
while you're still alive.
Right, exactly.
Like to have Jim Brown come back and talk a few years ago.
Yeah. I mean, the community's not going to forget you. I mean, there's fans that go way back.
Oh, the fans won't forget you.
But you like you say,
but your university forgot you.
Yeah, exactly.
And they could say that they haven't, but who's talked about Art Monk, John Mackey, Joe Morris, Rob Drummond? Who's talked Walter Reyes? Who's talked about it? And even when Walter Reyes passed away, what did Syracuse do?
Right.
Does Syracuse even know that Walter Reyes played for them?
I did. I want to say they put out a statement, but yeah.
A statement.
Yeah.
But
that's
what game? Like, what did we do to honor?
Yeah, exactly.
In the community.
Yeah.
When did everybody wear his number on their helmet?
Right. Exactly. Oh no, I take your point. Yeah. Exactly.
So, again, the university may not, but Tortora and Alford will. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora will. And inside of these studios, and if I had to live in a bunker or be underneath 81, I would still make sure, living in a box, that everyone that ever listens or watches this show will know of the history of everybody that came through here, because you all deserve it. Just like Jim Duren deserves to be honored. And, I mean, there's so many players. I mean, Blake Bednarz and Turnell Sims and, John Flannery won a Super Bowl, and he as a center on Syracuse, one of the best offensive linemen, then won a Super Bowl with the Colts, and nobody's talking about John Flannery, was at the Texas Bowl, walked onto the field before the game. Nobody in Syracuse knew who he was. He came back this season for the Louisville game, not because they were honoring him and not because they were doing anything. He came back with his family by himself because he wanted to come back. And it was the first time he had been back in over 20 years.
Yeah. I mean, sometimes there's a reason why they don't come back as quick, but But like you say, you love them and the community love them, and just like you said, keep speaking their names, because eventually somebody's going to catch on to it and give them their due.
I mean, Chandler Jones and Arthur Jones should be back every year, multiple times a year. So to look at this season and Syracuse, to let you know the truth here, Syracuse in the Atlantic Division is second. If you look at the ACC standings, Clemson is first at 3-0. Syracuse is second at 2-0, followed by Florida State at 2-1, Wake Forest at 1-1, Boston College at 1-2. NC State and Louisville have not won a conference game yet. NC State is 0-1. Their only conference game for them is playing Clemson. And Louisville is 0-3. In the Coastal Division, Mike Elko has the Duke Blue Devils on top at 1-0, but they're also 4-1 overall. typically they're winning 3 to 4 games a year. North Carolina, when Larry Fedora left, was winning 2 to 3 games a year, and Mac Brown has them in his second coming here a few seasons in, 4-1 and 1-0 in the conference. They're the only 2 Coastal Division teams in the ACC to be undefeated. Georgia Tech is 1-1 after defeating Pittsburgh on the road. Virginia Tech is 1-1 under Brent Pry, a new head coach there. Miami has not played a game. Pittsburgh is 0-1, and that game the loss to Georgia Tech. And Virginia Cavaliers, with their new coach Tony Elliott, are 0-2. And if you look at overall just the entire conference, you have Pittsburgh at 3-2, 5 weeks in. North Carolina and Duke at 4-1 apiece. You have NC State at 4-1, Wake Forest at 4-1, Florida State at 4-1, and Clemson and Syracuse at 5-0, which means that 8 of the 14 teams, more than half of the ACC, has a winning record heading into Week 6.
Yeah, and it's crazy just going down that list. Into Week 5, Miami still hasn't played a conference game, which is, I don't know how the scheduling gets down that far.
Well, they got to play Bethune-Cookman.
Well, yeah. I guess you're right there.
They will play Louisville, though. Their first conference game, I believe, is North Carolina.
North Carolina. And that's the surprise team of the Coastal, too, after them losing Sam Hartman. I don't think many people were really anticipating them kind of having the season they're having. Outstanding offense, but the defense got more work to do. And like you say, Duke is doing what they're doing on that side of the bracket. So Coastal, I'm gonna be interested to see how the Coastal shake out. I think North Carolina has the lead on the Coastal side. Other than that, I don't see really too much on the Coastal happening.
No.
Maybe Pitt.
How about Duke, though?
Yeah,
4-1.
Yeah.
In Mike Elko's first year, and keep in mind that points for 38 points against 17, looking at this in the conference, but overall, points for in 5 games, Duke has scored 175 points while only allowing 95, allowing 80 less points than what they're scoring. And Mike Elko is a defensive coordinator turned head coach. So I really want to let people know that not only is Mike Elko, as a head coach, 4-1 in his first season at Duke, coming from working with Jimbo Fisher at Texas A&M, and he was in the ACC as an assistant before that. But seeing that he's 4-1, scoring seeing that he's 4-1, scoring 175 points to their opponent's 95, to state that they're 4-1, to state that they're 3-0 at home, undefeated on Tobacco Road, and that they won their only conference game, I think it's even more important to say that not only is Duke 4-1, but that this team is scoring a lot of points with a coach that's a defensive-minded coach. So they're doing all of these things right, and you would think that he'd be gutting out 17, 20 points a game. No, this guy could put up 40 as a defensive coach.
Yeah, he's got a good offensive staff there, I'm pretty sure, with him. But I kind of caught a few games of Duke. I kind of like that quarterback. The quarterback kind of reminds me of Eric Dungy.
And can I tell you that I knew this man through his recruitment? Number 13, Riley Leonard, who came down to Syracuse and Duke and chose Duke over Syracuse, and you would have thought it was a basketball decision.
Right.
Riley Leonard chose the Duke Blue Devils and became their starter, and I am ecstatic for Riley because I was a fan of Riley 3 years ago, at least 3 years ago, and so happy to see what he's done. So I love the fact that you said you like the Duke quarterback because I asked Mike Elko about Riley Leonard, who has already thrown in 5 games for over 1,100 yards, 1,176, 72% completion percentage, 7 passing touchdowns to 2 interceptions, and the second leading rusher on the team in yardage gained with 260, 6.3 yards a carry, and 4 rushing touchdowns.
Yeah, and only sacked 4 times. So the offensive line keeping them upright, So that's key right there too for a team, like you said, defensive-minded coach, but yet they're putting up points. So now, take care of the quarterback, and he's distributing the ball out there. They're doing everything they need to do to win games so far.
And the guy he was competing with, Jordan Moore, shifted from quarterback to wide receiver and has the third most yardage on the team through 5 games with 215 receiving yards and 3 touchdowns. So quarterback to quarterback right now, as you have Jordan Moore who's shifted over. So that's an interesting part of it. But could not be happier for Riley Leonard. But keep making me more and more happy, Riley. So happy to be a fan of yours years ago. And I am ecstatic when you have those people that you never know what's going to happen, cheering for them, and then seeing that not only is he on the field, but that he's a starter. The team's 4-1, and in the first year where he is the declared guy, that he's just done an incredible job.
Yeah, definitely. Confidence and an opportunity to play does a lot for a player. You know, like you say, you get the opportunity to meet them and talk to them as they're coming from high school to this level, and we all
when
know
he was making a decision.
Yeah. So we know how different that level, that jump from high school to college is, and like you said, seeing them to develop into the players they come to be, you know, it's always a special thing.
And to answer the question I was asked, Dan, why would you talk to someone who didn't choose Syracuse? My answer to that, I support every person chasing their dream, doing it the right way with morals, values, positivity, and a lot of these people with faith in God. So why did I cover Riley when he chose Duke over Syracuse? Because as I tell all of these young men and women, once a fan, always a fan, and wherever you go, I am always in your corner. So, and now Riley Leonard's a starter, and I get to, you know, eat your heart out, Julia Child. So I get to enjoy all this. So I hope that Duke keeps killing it, man. And for the first time in like 15 years, Syracuse, I think Duke is the team in the one rotator where Syracuse plays the whole Atlantic Division, Pittsburgh's their permanent in the Coastal Division, and then you have the rotator. Well, they didn't really rotate a lot because Syracuse played Duke a lot, including 2 years in a row, and I think they played 3 times already.
Yeah.
So Duke not on Syracuse's schedule, so I can even more so cheer for Riley Leonard. But you know, I got much love for the kid.
Right.
And,
It's funny that you said that. I was thinking that the other day about the whole rotate, because you know the schedule's changing next year with the whole divisions and stuff like that.
yeah, it's gonna have the 3-5-5 model now, which kind of feels like the 3-3-5 defense. But that Syracuse will have Miami in the Dome for the first time in 22 years in 2024.
Yeah, and I was just thinking to add on to that, what team that we haven't traveled to since being in the ACC in football? Can you think of a team we haven't traveled to?
We went to Virginia.
We did.
I think we went to Virginia Tech.
Yep.
We
went to Duke.
We went to Duke. We went to North Carolina. We went to Pittsburgh.
Did we go to Georgia Tech?
I don't think we did.
We haven't gone to Georgia Tech
as
as the ACC team.
Yeah.
We went when it was the Big East. But for some reason, I don't think we went to Virginia either. Having Virginia come up.
Maybe we didn't go to Virginia.
Yeah, having Virginia come up was the first time since we've been in the conference. Because the last time they came was like, I forgot, maybe
Which
like
is nuts.
20. So yeah, it's just like.
I don't know if we've been to Miami since.
No, we've been to Miami. That's the old Dungy jump kick. We went down to Miami.
Okay.
Because Dungy had that awesome play where he almost leaped over the one guy. Now you got me thinking. I'm thinking, did Dungy? I remember Dungy had a run where he scrambled. And he just made it to the end zone. Was that for the Virginia game? Wow. Well, it's just some reason. Maybe it's Georgia Tech and Virginia. I had in my mind like, since we've been in this conference, we haven't actually went on the road there. But we've been to Louisville 3 times in a row.
Well, yeah.
We've been some other places, you know.
So if you go back and you look at it, so Syracuse joined the ACC back in 2013. So you go back and you look at that, and we were at Georgia Tech that year. Lost 56-0. That's a fun memory. So,
next phase, please.
Beat Wagner that year, 54-0. And so so joining then, so Georgia, so we did go to Georgia Tech. So we did go to Georgia Tech.
Did go to Georgia Tech.
I guess you and I just tried to block it out.
Well, yeah, you were gonna forget that one.
And then so it might be. Let's see here. So if you're looking back at it,
let's see, Dungy years maybe.
I'm trying to look at the Coastal because I know in the Atlantic we've been.
Yeah.
So we have been to Virginia.
Okay, that
44-38, 3 overtime, October 17th.
Gotcha.
So Syracuse did go there, and
so we have been all around the ACC now. So it was the first time Virginia came up to us there.
Yeah, because some of these teams, it's like really weird how many times Syracuse has played Duke, and then Miami. So Syracuse came in 2013 and did not play Miami in 2013, 14, 15, or 16. They played in 2017 on the road. Miami was 8th in the country on my birthday, 27-19. So, yeah, so I know on my birthday I was doing other things. Not getting
What,
drunk,
you wasn't
folks.
watching the Syracuse game?
Not getting drunk, folks, because your boy don't get drunk. I do remember, though, that the
That's
South
the
Florida...
rip. That's the game. Dudgy threw the interception and ripped it back from the guy.
Okay. Well, I remember in the South Florida game on the road, I do remember that game was when I was at a wedding, and I was looking at everything, like the score on my phone. That was my buddy Chris App's wedding. So I love you, Chris. I don't think you saw me look at my phone, but I guess the statute of limitations is over on that one. So as we take a look, speaking of scheduling, at what happened this past week in the ACC, on the first day of October, which ACC teams only played on Saturday this past week. NC State, number 10 ranked in the country at the time, and number 5 Clemson. Game was close. NC State couldn't get it going late, made mistakes, and lost to Clemson 30-20. Wake Forest, number 22 on the road at 23 Florida State, defeated Florida State 31-21. Georgia Tech at number 24 Pittsburgh did the unthinkable and won the game. Georgia Tech hasn't won a lot of conference games, and typically Pittsburgh is doing well under Pat Narduzzi. So losing that game was a little bit of a shocker, a shocker, I should say. 26-21, probably, arguably, one of the most shocking games in all of college football this season is Georgia Tech beating Pittsburgh.
Yeah, coming off firing the coach and relieving the AD.
Yeah.
You go up there and maybe Pitt took the foot off the pedal and just thought, okay, this team is coming in with a lot of controversial. And you know what? That team rose to the occasion and played for the interim head coach there. And hey, they took one from Pitt. It definitely was a shocker.
And Hassan Hall, who was recruited by Syracuse, went to Louisville, transferred to Georgia Tech, led both teams with 157 rushing yards. Louisville at Boston College. Boston College continues to smack down Louisville here, winning 34-33 at home. Phil Jerkovich had 304 yards for Boston College. Zay Flowers, the leading receiver on the team, had 151 receiving yards for Boston College. Pretty much half the yards of Phil Jerkovich threw were to Zay Flowers. Virginia Tech at North Carolina. North Carolina took down Virginia Tech 41-10, and Drake May was the leading passer and leading rusher in the game. Josh Downs, also of North Carolina, the leading receiver in the game, 120 yards. Wagner at Syracuse, as you know, 59-0. Garrett Schrader, 238 yards, 2 touchdowns, no picks, 17 for 17. Sean Tucker, 232 yards on 23 carries, 10.1 yards per carry. And once again, Aronde Gadsden, the second, leads the entire team with 66 yards receiving in this game, has led the team multiple times, has had 2 100-yard receiving games, and led all receivers in this game on both teams. Virginia at Duke 38-17 at home. Brennan Armstrong was the leading passer in the game, though. However, Duke got the victory. Besides Georgia Tech, Pittsburgh, anything else that stood out to you from this past week, week 5?
The BC Louisville game, that was a real back and forth game. BC found a way to gut it out. Djokovic made a great scramble down the sideline late in that game to get them in the field goal range. You know what? Because it was one of those games I kept flipping the channel before, going to the Syracuse game. I was like, okay, let me just kind of keep my eye on this game. Yeah. And it seemed like every time Louisville would score, every time I would watch, Louisville would score, and I flipped the channel to another game, and I flipped back, and BC already returned the score again. So it was like one of those.
So you just had to stop watching it for Louisville to lose.
Yeah, exactly, basically. So.
And the only team to score in the fourth quarter, Boston College. After Louisville scored a touchdown to make it 33-28 in the third quarter with 4:50 left, they did not score for the final 19 minutes and change of the game, with BC getting 2 field goals in the fourth quarter from Connor Lifton, who lifted them up to a 34-33 victory. So Boston College's defense was able to stunt Louisville at the end of the game.
Yeah, and I think they also knocked Cunningham out of the game too. I think he went out late in the third quarter too with maybe a minor injury. I don't think it was anything major there. He might be all right coming up the next game. But you know what? Syracuse coming into this season, you never could really predict how the conference is going to shake out. You know, I'm pretty sure what did they get predicted coming into the season in the conference? They probably picked dead last, right?
They picked 7.
So you know what? You never know.
7 out of 7.
Yep. So,
Duke and Syracuse picked at the bottom.
And both of them sit towards the top of their record.
And between the two of them, they're
in the
9.
division,
They're 9-1.
Exactly.
And Duke is at the top of the Coastal, and Syracuse is only behind Clemson in the Atlantic.
Exactly.
Which is crazy. But now we'll get into the meat of the conference here, as Duke's only played 1 conference game. Syracuse has played 2. 1 against the Coastal and 1 against the Atlantic. The Coastal being Virginia, the Atlantic being Louisville. And so seeing that, big ups to Syracuse. And in the week that Syracuse is going to be on bye week to get everybody back healthy, God willing. And so taking a look at this, on Saturday, October 8th, my dog up in heaven, Shady's birthday. We have only ACC games on Saturday. They're not playing any early games this week. And so here in week 6, we will see pretty much everybody in action. So we have Louisville at Virginia, which will be at noon Eastern time on the ACC network. Virginia Tech at Pitt, 3:30 p.m. Eastern time on the ACC network. Duke at Georgia Tech on ESPN3 at 4 p.m. Eastern time. North Carolina at Miami at 4 p.m. Eastern time on ESPN2. And then Clemson at Boston College on ABC for a nighttime game. Huge for Boston College. Good for them on that. At 7:30 p.m. Eastern time. Number 5 ranked Clemson. Army will be at number 15 ranked Wake Forest. 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, ESPN3 in a non-conference game. And Florida State will be at NC State, number 14 ranked NC State at 8 p.m. Eastern time on the ACC network. Meaning that Wake Forest played Clemson, and then NC State followed to play Clemson, and now Wake Forest played Florida State, and NC State gets them. So Wake gets them first, NC State gets them second in back-to-back weeks. Wake had Clemson, then NC State had them, and both of them fell to Clemson, and now Wake Forest defeated Florida State. We'll see if NC State can follow the bouncing ball here in the pattern and beat Florida State when they have them at home.
Yeah, I mean, like I'll tell you before, the schedule kind of sets up kind of interesting where some of the top end teams are going head to head against each other. And then it's kind of right before they even play Syracuse when they're going head to head. So you're kind of seeing who's who in the division. You know, Clemson hasn't faltered, even though, like we said, DJ's been getting a lot of flack coming into the season, saying what he's not and what he hadn't been able to do.
Yep.
But you know what? He's made the plays when he had to, and the Tigers are still on top so far in the Atlantic Division. You know, Wake Forest still prove, hey, we're a tough team to come through. You know, we're not a pushover. And, you know, Florida State had all the hype, you know, and they deserved. They beat a good LSU team.
Yeah.
And you know what? That still show you how tough that Wake Forest team is to go into Tallahassee and to do what they did. And now they can't afford to go down 0-2.
Yeah.
And then when they got a tough NC State team coming in. So definitely it's going to be an interesting week coming up and kind of seeing how the division kind of shakes out even before Syracuse even get a chance to get back into it. So it's a kind of blessing in disguise that Syracuse got the Louisville victory. You got the Virginia victory. Now you're sitting 2-0. And you got teams battling to stay within contention. You know what? Some of these teams already got their first loss.
Yeah, I mean, a good thing that, as we had said in our quick post game outside the Dome, NC State, Wake Forest, Clemson, and Florida State all had to play each other in some type of fashion before they get to Syracuse. DJ Uiagalelei, I said last week, had 1,103 yards, 64.3% completion percentage, 10 touchdowns, 1 interception, and was 4-0, and people gave him flack. After this past week, now has 1,242 yards. His completion percentage went up to 65.4%. He has another passing touchdown and still 1 interception, 11 touchdowns to 1 interception, and DJ and Clemson are 5-0. And credit to the offensive line. In 5 weeks, he has only been sacked 6 times, which is a little over 1 sack a game.
So yeah, they finding their legs. You know, I think they got an identity to run the ball. It's almost kind of like Syracuse last year with Shipley and DJ. Those 2 guys, you're gonna heavily rely on them on the run game. But you know, he's like you said, he's handling the ball. He's not throwing interceptions. He definitely turned it around from last year where he was from touchdown to interceptions ratio. So, you know what? If they keep playing, they're going to be a tough out in the division.
And between Will Shipley the true running back, and DJ Uyunglele, the quarterback of the team. They have combined through 5 weeks for 655 rushing yards, averaging together about 5 yards a carry, and between the two of them, 10 rushing touchdowns. Shipley with 7 and DJ with 3. Shipley 6.3 yards a carry and DJ with 4.4. So I will continue to have the conversation of facts versus idiocy, of coming into last week talking about DJ's numbers and then seeing his numbers get better this past week. And keep in mind, folks, that when we're looking at these numbers, right, Clemson, I told you the two teams that I thought had the best chance of taking down Clemson going into this season in the ACC were Wake Forest and NC State. And having both of these teams having played Clemson and Clemson getting these victories, you know, DJ beat the two teams that I thought would give him the biggest strike, two teams that were ranked in the top 25, and seeing what he's done, his numbers going up, 11 touchdowns to 1 interception, completion percentage at over 65%, and over 1,200 yards passing, and the second leading rusher on the team, and 14 overall touchdowns. When you look at this, it's not only that DJ has helped the team to 5-0, it's the fact that DJ's numbers have stayed strong against the two biggest wolves to try and blow the house down.
Yeah, we definitely talked about that. They've, if you want to say they so-called gotten through their toughest part of what they might consider the schedule, but I mean, any team can beat anybody on a given day if you got a bad day, but they've proven it against the hunters, you know what I'm saying, those guys that's coming after them, their crown, you know what I'm saying. So those two teams that really want to, if they knew they were going to win the Atlantic Division, they had to beat Clemson, and they already took care of that. So, but you know what? The only other team that I kind of see on Clemson's schedule that probably may have an opportunity to catch them, maybe a Florida State. You know, I like what Florida State's doing this year.
Which I also said under Mike Norvell, give them time, I'm not worried. And I've preached that since the day he came in.
So, yeah, they're definitely a team to look out for that on this side of the bracket. That could probably give some fits to a Clemson team.
Yeah.
Other than that, you know, they definitely got some games they can't fall asleep under. You know, they can't take nobody lightly, but they definitely they control their own destiny for the rest of the season.
Their two easiest games remaining are South Carolina and Louisville, and arguably then Miami. Notre Dame depends on where they're at the time. Their hardest games left on their schedule for Clemson with 7 games to go are at Boston College this week, and then at Florida State, and then home against Syracuse, because Syracuse typically plays up to Clemson, but this year they're not playing up or down to their opponents. They're actually in every game vying to win the game and pushing. I mean, not that in the past they weren't trying to win, but people might want to knock Purdue, the game that Syracuse had against Purdue and the game that Syracuse had against Virginia. My rebuttal to that, to look at glass half full, is that Syracuse teams in the past would have crumbled.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
But to see Syracuse stay poised and get after it and give themselves a fighting chance to win the game, not just win the game, but to even have the chance to get there. What they did against Purdue and what they did against Virginia, they didn't crumble, they didn't give up, they didn't hang their heads, they didn't let anyone get into their head. I have not seen a Syracuse team in a very long time do what they did against one team in that season, let alone in back-to-back weeks, to gut it out against Purdue after losing the lead, gut it out against Virginia after losing the lead. For what Syracuse did in both of those games, some people might see that as ugly. I see that as resiliency. And I think that with the way they played Clemson in multiple seasons, including when they beat them and how they played them on the road, I think this could be a fun game because they're not playing up to Clemson. They're just playing up all season long.
Yeah, and you know what? If when it comes down to that Clemson game, Clemson can't afford to turn the ball over to a Syracuse team. You know, I think offensively, Syracuse is confident enough in their abilities to put points on the board. You know, Clemson got the defense. But this Syracuse squad so far, I like it. I take it. The coin flip and what a team decide in the beginning of the games, whether we want to go on defense or offense first. So far, when Syracuse won the toin calls, what do they do? We want the ball.
Yeah.
We want to put the pressure on you first. We're not going to, even though defense has led this team so far this year, they're not saying, okay, we want to put our defense out there and play field position. No, they're like, we're going to take the ball, we're going to score, and then you got to play against our defense, and let's see what you can do. So
I love that Dino's trying to score first and score early.
Yeah.
He's trying to make a statement, because back in the day when you and I were growing up, it was normal if you played a video game, if you watched a game, college, NFL, if you won the toss, you received the ball. And then for these last few years, people have been deferring to the second half.
Right.
And then Syracuse kind of changed the wave this year, and when they started accepting it and when they won the coin toss, taking the ball first, I sat here and I was like, is everybody doing this, or are they like starting the trend again?
Right.
Because it's kind of unheard of that. I mean, how many times have we seen in multiple years recently where it was like, you get the coin toss, you win it, you receive the ball, and then we saw that stop, and everybody's like, no, take it in the second half because we have a chance to answer, coming out of the break. And now Syracuse this year with Dino, he's like, I want it.
Yeah.
And I love the fact that they changed it, and it's really one of those things that, I don't know if people are talking about, but it's a really great thing to do. I don't know why they ever switched the other way. Yeah. And I think like Dino said, you got to play chess, not checkers. And I think in playing chess, strike first.
Yeah, definitely.
And strike fast.
And you know why? Because the strength of the team in the past few years was the defense. But, sometimes you can get yourself behind, the whole new fast mentality. Sometimes it was a little taxing on the defense. And then when you got your defense out there giving up points and can't stop an offense, it's better to be the guy out there putting the points up and making the other team defense try to stop you instead of you having your defense out there over the total number of plays and stuff that we've seen in the past. So I did take notice of that too. And I was like, you know what, that's kind of changing of the mentality in the program. Like, you know what, we got the confidence in our own players and our own offense. We're gonna go out there and put the points on first.
Yeah, and I mean it's also starting a trend back to what we were always used to. If you won the toss, it was like, if you won the toss, that to you was amazing. Of course we want the ball.
Exactly.
And now you win the toss, unless you're in overtime, you defer.
Yes. Yeah.
And no, Dino's saying, no, let's score first, so that they have to chase us the whole game if we do what we need to do. And I love it. I think it's great, and I commend Dino for doing it. I think it's awesome. Wisconsin, we talked about Georgia Tech firing their head coach, Jeff Collins, who I got to know in his time at Temple and then also at Georgia Tech. So God bless you, Jeff, and my hope to you and your family moving forward. Another guy I got to know at Pitt who moved on to Wisconsin, Paul Chris. God bless you and your family too. He was just fired by Wisconsin after a 2-3 start. Defensive coordinator Jim Leonard is going to take over as interim right now.
I guess they couldn't handle the loss of the Illinois team and the former coach there. So yeah, it's tough. I mean,
but look at his record.
Yeah, that's
Paul
what I'm saying.
Christ is 67-26 in 7+ seasons at Wisconsin. He has, in over 7 years in Wisconsin, he has 41 more wins than losses. And they're like, you suck.
But they couldn't take Brett Bielema getting the best of him, I guess. But yeah, sometimes you got to be careful too when you fire a coach, just because it's all emotional and not based on records and, like you say, facts like that. Because we around this area, we know how trying to find the right guy to fit a program is. And Paul Chris wasn't even part of that program. It was his dream to get back to Wisconsin. Yeah, so when you do things like that, I hope you got the right answer, because sometimes finding the right guy is just as easy as just like, oh yeah. We're going to fire this guy. We're going to bring in this guy. Ask Nebraska.
Yeah, ask Syracuse.
Yeah, exactly.
Fire Paul Pasqualoni for
exactly.
back-to-back 6-6 seasons and haven't found a way to do anything really of merit outside of a little bit with Marone and a little bit with Dino.
Just a little bit. I mean, it's not consistent. Look at his record. That's a consistent team that's going to bowl games and whatnot. But you know what?
And a team that's vying to go to the Big Ten Championship.
Yeah.
So, and by the way, ranks every year, although I always think that they're overrated. Wisconsin, in recent years, Wisconsin will owe him $16.4 million if he was fired without cause. And they can negotiate different. Also, Wisconsin's athletic board in this past January of 2022 approved the rollover of his 5-year contract through the 2026 season. So, you may have wanted to get rid of him now, but you're going to arguably owe him over $16 million, and you signed him on through 2026. So, You get a little Bobby Bonilla contract for Paul Chris.
Yeah, I take that. You know, and it says fired without cause. What
would the cause be?
What would the cause be?
You didn't win? That's not a
got
cause.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You know, we win games, we lose games.
Unless there's some type of assault or he did something, right? You know what I mean?
I guess he better be careful the next few days. Well, he's already fired now, so unless they got a tape or something, I don't know.
Yeah.
So,
Paul Chris, don't you be going to Urban Meyer's restaurant having any girls dancing.
There you go, because that's $16 million in your pocket right there.
Yeah, you better take that home without cause. So that's ridiculous. But we will take another step aside here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. When we come back, we will review Syracuse statistically as we take a look at their cumulative stats over these first 5 games as opposed to their opponents, folks. The numbers are staggering, and we will enjoy those numbers. We eat them up after this, and Isaac and I are going to talk about how one of their perfect numbers was taken away by the fact that they knelt down at the end of the Wagner game, which is some Larda BS. So we'll talk about that right after this fast break, a technicality keeping them from being 100%. We'll talk about it after this from the Cafe Kubal Studios. Avicoli's, located on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, has been your trusted neighbor for decades. Located just steps from Liverpool High School, we're happy to have the Liverpool Warriors on-site, on-location broadcast at Avicoli's through Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora every single month, featuring student athletes, coaches, and administration throughout the year from Liverpool High School. Head out to Avicoli's today on the corner of Route 57 and Wetzel Road in Liverpool, New York, open Tuesday through Sunday for lunch, dinner, and drinks. We'd love to see you out there. And of course, you can call them at 315-622-5100 for takeout, delivery, and catering. That's 315-622-5100. And also find them on myavicolis.com. That's myavicollis.com. Having peace of mind when you're out of town that your furry-loving friend is safe and sound means taking them to Canine Campground, because we all know that when it comes to the love of our pets, it goes well beyond the call of duty to make sure they're safe and sound. Right, Lily? So take a ride to 242 Johnson Street in East Syracuse, New York, and see Canine Campground and where your dog will be staying, in the classic cabin, the executive cabin, the grand cabin, or of course the luxury cabin, because if you know Lily, you know she loves luxury. Now you don't have to wait to the last minute to find a family member or a friend that'll take your dog for a few days. Call Canine Campground at 315-299-4013. That's 315-299-4013. Their drop-off and pickup times are Monday through Sunday. Check K9campground.com for more information. That's the letter K, the number 9, and campground spelled with a K.com. K9campground.com.
When you're going out of town, bring your dog to Canine Campground.
PB&J's Lunchbox, the food truck that you love finding all throughout central and upstate New York, now has a street-side cafe. So when you're craving their traditional favorites as well as their out-of-box amazing menu items, you can now head to 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. Located just minutes from the highway, the Thruway, Destiny USA, and Onondaga Lake Parkway, PB&J's Lunchbox Street-Side Cafe is there for you Monday through Saturday from 9 a.m. to 7 p.m., serving breakfast, lunch, and dinner all throughout the day. Get breakfast for dinner, dinner for lunch, whatever you fancy, including their award-winning grilled peanut butter and jelly sandwich. Find them at 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York. PB&J's Lunchbox, where we love to know what's in your lunchbox. As a patient, what do we want? To be cared for, to be listened to, and to have someone walk us through the process on our path to victory. Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics does all of those things beautifully, with Dr. Mark Petropoli leading the team on 791 West Genesee Street in Skaneateles, New York, located minutes from beautiful Skaneateles Lake. Whatever your injury may be, from head to toe, preventative care, rehab, physical therapy, laser therapy, and surgery are all available at Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, where they care about us, they listen to us, and they understand that everyone's path to victory is a little bit different. Let them help you on yours by calling 315-685-7544 to make your appointment today. That's 315-685-7544. And find out more information at victorysportsmedicine.com. Welcome back here to Tortora and Alford inside of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. Here with you in the bye week Blitz. We have given you a ton of Syracuse related content, as well as the ACC and college football in general, as we are here in Syracuse's bye week and the week to celebrate Shady, my pup in heaven, my little sister. So celebrating her on October 8th. Big ups and God bless to her as always, and more to in Cinnamon. All my dogs up there, so 3 kisses up top. And to Lily, my girl, right here on Earth. So, Syracuse 21 in the Coaches Bowl, 22 in the AP. We are inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios, 3501 James Street, 324 West Water Street, 401 South Salina Street, all in Syracuse, 343 Fayette Street in Manlius, and on the corner of Route 11 and Taft Road at Sweetheart Corners in North Syracuse. And, of course, you could go to cafekubal.com and have it sent to you in this country. So make sure you go to cafekubal.com if you're out of the area and have it sent right over to you. Inside of MON-FRI What's Poppin'? We're talking Syracuse all throughout this broadcast to start off your first full week of October. And Isaac and I have talked about a lot of different things. But looking at Syracuse by the numbers right now, the first stat I'm going to go to is the one that's going to make us the most angry. And that is the fact that Syracuse has been 100% in the red zone. In my opinion, they're 23 of 23. But because they took a knee at the end of the game against Wagner, they're considered 23 of 24. Even though they didn't lose the drive, they didn't turn the ball over on downs, because they didn't come away with points on a kneel down. The kneel down counts against Syracuse to keep them from being 100%. But in my non-technicality world, they're 23 of 23.
Yeah, they always, so you telling me game situation doesn't dictate. It's not like Syracuse was trying to score. They could have scored if they really wanted to.
Right. They're trying to respect their opponent.
Exactly. So, some things I guess it's going to be one of those, we already kind of went over the ranking, brouhaha, the nonsense that comes with ranking. So now we at a point where we getting stats are being kind of manipulated in a way where you don't take it into full context of what was actually going on in that game. So, yeah, it's a little cheesy to me.
So in the red zone, when Syracuse was trying to score outside of one kneel down, I'm going to say they're 23 of 23, and they are 15 of 23 for touchdowns. 15 of their 23 trips to the red zone have been touchdowns. The other 8 have been field goals. So not only have, besides the kneel down, are they 100% on their red zone attempts, but 15 of them have been for touchdowns, so coming away with at least 7, if not 8, instead of 3. And Andre Schmidt has been automatic, so big ups to him. He's also 22 of 22 on extra points this season so far as well. So really, really great, as well as the fact that the team is 44% on third down conversions, 26 of 59, and almost 67% on fourth downs, 2 of 3. On the other side of it, they have held their opponents to 38% on third downs, which is still respectable, 24-63, and held them to 2 of 8 on fourth downs at 25%, including in big-time games like the Virginia game, where there were 2 knockdown passes, one by linebacker Anwar Sparrow, and one by defensive back Eric Coley to end that game.
Yeah, definitely.
And Eric Coley's being the fourth down. So, And then looking at some of the other numbers here that you have, the one that's not great for Syracuse that could bite them in the tush later on here is that they have had 50 penalties for a total of 362 yards, almost the length of the football field 4 times over. 50 penalties to their opponent's 38 penalties, which is gross. So they need to figure that out. They average a loss of over 72 yards per game on penalties.
Yeah, that's kind of ugly. And I think penalties come in, well, we know 18 of those came from the Louisville game. But penalties probably could be, it can be, some of that stuff is, a lot of that stuff is in control because a lot of it's pre-snap penalties, alignments. You know, we watch the Syracuse offense through these first 5 games. They do a lot of personnel changes, so somebody might not get lined up properly. And I still, for the reason, not trying to pick on, but we still get, you know, the center pre-snap penalty, the guy that's hiking the ball. I don't get that one, but some of that stuff can be cleaned up, you know. But it can come back to bite you if you're in a game where you really need a certain drive and you just getting penalties like that.
Andre Schmidt, 10 of 11 on his field goals, 22 of 22 on his extra points, as I had mentioned before. Big shout out to my guy as well, Brady Denneberg, the true freshman kicker who has been doing the kickoffs for Syracuse, and he is consistently not allowing them to return the ball, kicking it into the end zone. So Brady Denneberg has been preventing many returns for the opposing team, which has been phenomenal. And Syracuse so far here averaging on offense 441.6 yards per game to 271.6. So that's huge for them there. Syracuse has over 2,200 yards of offense, and they're outscoring their opponents 23 touchdowns to 10 on offense, which is a beautiful thing here as well. So definitely want to show respect for that. And Syracuse is passing 1,256 yards to their opponents 883, rushing 952 yards to their opponents 475.
Yeah, and that says a lot in the last, 3 games, the last couple of games, we've had some quarterbacks that come in here that, you know, can toss the ball around the yard. So to say the defense is still holding up their end of the bargain with the...
And you played Brennan Armstrong and Malik Cunningham.
Mm-hmm.
It's not, and you played Aiden O'Connell.
Exactly.
So 3 out of the 5 guys you played are, potential NFL quarterbacks.
Experienced guys that have been out in many games. And I like that for this fact that the defense, now we're going to hit the ACC schedule. You got DJ, you got Sam, you got the guys all, you know, Wake Forest guy, you know, you got guys that's been around the league that can toss the ball. And if we can keep that same momentum going, you know, that bodes well for the Syracuse defense.
Syracuse, outside of penalty first downs, Syracuse has 110 first downs through 5 games. So they have 110, and they have allowed 66 to their 110. They've given up 5 first downs on penalties. They've gained 12 first downs on penalties. And points per game, this is a big one here. Syracuse is averaging 38.4 points per game while allowing their opponents 14 points a game on average. Overall in 5 games, 192 to 70. They're outscoring their opponents. But look at that number. Syracuse scoring almost 40 points a game while allowing 14. Mm-hmm. And that is against, again, to note this, for those of you that don't think Syracuse has played anybody, 3 out of 5 teams with guys that could end up playing as NFL quarterbacks.
Yeah, and I think that 70 given up was, we were looking at a stat, I forgot which team we was talking about earlier, and I think that's the fewest in the ACC at the moment for a defense. So the defense, as they call themselves, the mob, is definitely out there doing their things and put their stamp on the season right now so far at this moment.
So with that being said, we'll take our final step aside and we will bid you adieu on Tortora and Alford after the fast break. We'll have a final word in Syracuse's bye-week Blitz here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora from inside of the Cafe Football studios.
Cafe Football offers same-day local delivery of our products, offering no delivery charge for Onondaga County. Shop cafecabal.com for fresh roasted coffee beans, cold brew, travel mugs, and all your essential Cafe Football needs. Cafe Football, coffee for the soul.
This is Amy from Mother's Cupboard, home of the whole frittata. We We are open daily 6 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. For takeout orders, call 315-432-0942 and tune in to Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora for our monthly food challenge and try our Wake Up Call signature menu item available 7 days a week. Here at Mother's Cupboard, we are Central New York, and it's our honor to serve you.
Ma&Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory remind us that every day is worth celebrating. Find them at 201 Old 7th North Street in Liverpool, New York, open Monday through Saturday in-store and all the time online at maandpaspopcorn.com. Serving our Central New York community and beyond, you can order all throughout the country at maandpaspopcorn.com. And remember to get your tins, which have in-store half-price refills forever. Ma&Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, available to you for fundraising and all of your events by calling 315-450-6272. That's 315-450-6272. Ma&Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory. How corny are you?
Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5, Camillus, where you will find handcrafted all-natural soy wax candles over 60 cents to freshen up your home. We carry a wide range of locally made items, Cuse, Syracuse Salt, and Chocolate Pizza Company, to name a few. Let our knowledgeable staff help choose unique gifts and keepsakes for any occasion. Gifts for family and friends, and maybe a little something for yourself. Witty Wicks Candles and Gift Shop, Township 5, Camillus.
Welcome back here to Tortora and Alford with Isaac Alford, myself, Dan Tortora, a product of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. To start off your Wake Up Call week here in the bye-week Blitz is what we call it. Syracuse in this conversation inside of the Cafe Kubal Studios. 21 in the Coaches Poll, 22 in the AP. And before we wrap things up, final word through the first 5 weeks.
First 5 weeks, I don't think many people would have predicted Syracuse being 5-0, so it's definitely a blessing that those young men have taken the time in all seasons and put the time to kind of study the playbook and soak in this new offense. You know, the defense definitely continue to play great football. Just want to hopefully pray and wish that, you know, all the players could stay healthy as much as possible. Again, like I said, this is football, so injuries are kind of part of the game. Like Dino said, you can't hit the best player on another team. So with that being said, definitely, I'm glad that they're 5-0. They got definitely a tough stretch coming up. Some good teams that they're going to play. A lot of good teams that are going to come to the Dome. You know, just hopefully, you know, the fans will come out, support the team that's putting a good product out there on the field.
Yeah.
And it's exciting football to watch. You know, very efficient. You know, rarely do you see seasons so far where teams can, again, be, as we say, perfect in the red zone, put up the points, and run the offense when they have to make the plays. That's all I can ask for, make a play when it's time to make in a critical time of the game. So I'm definitely going to be anticipating some battles coming down the stretch and seeing where this team can take it.
Yeah, you know, and I think for my final word here, I want to thank Stefan Thompson. I want to thank Chris Elmore. I want to thank Terry Lockett, all the guys that have been lost for the season, for all that you bring to the team and continue to bring to the team. Please keep your spirits positive. If any one of you guys need anybody, you can get in touch with us. We'd be more than happy to be positive. We always spread love and light and faith your way, so we're sending you all that we possibly can because you guys deserve it. And I really very much appreciate everything that you have done to make this season what it is. So even though you're not physically on the field, I do appreciate you very, very much. And I just want to send that love because they really, truly deserve that. And then another note here, I want to give a shout out to everybody that's stepped up, like Maximilian Mang, LeQuint Allen, Amari Hatcher, DeMarcus Adams, Devon Cooper, Trevor Pena doing his thing. My guy who's running for the presidential candidacy at some point with me, Enrique A. Cruz Jr., who got in the first half of this game on the offensive line at tackle. God bless to all of you. And a big shout out to those that had to step up on defense. Steve Linton, Jadius Gear, as well as Kayvon Darton. And I want to also thank Anwar Sparrow, Derek McDonald, Leon Lowry, to Coley, Elijah Clark, and so on and so forth. Big shout out to my guy Brady Denenberg as well. And I would be remiss if I didn't congratulate two gentlemen that I'm very, very excited for as Syracuse continues to make history in these first 5 weeks. And that is a big shout out to LaQuint Allen for scoring his first collegiate touchdown, an 8-yard touchdown run for the running back, doing it in the third quarter against Wagner, and for Amari Hatcher, who caught a 16-yard pass from Garrett Schrader in the second quarter against Wagner for his first career collegiate touchdown as well. So a shout out to both of you gentlemen for making some personal history. So much love for that, and just really happy to see all this. And Syracuse in the turnover ratio, I believe at this point is +5.
Mm-hmm.
So still looking good in the turnover ratio. And in 4 out of 5 games, did not turn the ball over.
Yeah, another shout out to Deuce Chestnut, Sub-Zero, for taking that pick 6.
Yeah, love that he's called Sub-Zero. Makes me think of the, back AB. You had to do like all this crazy stuff to make it work on Sega. And the only time I could ever get Sub-Zero to push out the ice was when I did it by accident.
Well, this was no accident.
Yeah, but Scorpion was back B. It was all you had to do was back and just do that. So I would do that the whole thing, back B, and just to hear him go, "Come here," and then pull him up and then just uppercut. So Sub-Zero, good for you, Deuce, because you make it look a lot easier than I made it look when I tried to make Sub-Zero put out the ice. So you've done it better in reality than I did it in fantasy. And with that being said, folks, we want to thank you so much for being a part of this edition of Tortora and Alford, and always of Wake Up Call every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You're on the Wake Up Call airwaves with me, here where sports meets life, on YouTube.com, Facebook.com, and MixLR.com, all /WakeUpCallDT, Facebook.com /LiveNowDT, and WakeUpCallDT.com. Once the shows go live, go check the archives out. We're all over the place. You can't not find us. I'm going to use a double negative, which turns into a positive. So you can find us all over the place. Amazon Music, Audible, iHeartRadio, iTunes and Apple Podcasts, MixLR, Player FM, Podbean, Podvine, TuneIn, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube, and more. All you have to do is search Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, or one word, Wake Up Call DT. And of course, you can ask Alexa or your Google Home device to play the latest episode of Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora, and she'll do that for you as well. Thank you to Central and Upstate New York partners and beyond, Cafe Cubal, Carvel DeWitt, Wildcat Sports Pub, Witty-Wicks, PB&J's Lunchbox, Canine Camp Dog Daycare, Avicoli's, Ma&Pa's Kettle Corn and Popcorn Factory, Canine Campground Dog Boarding, Pizza Man, Chick-fil-A Cicero and Chick-fil-A Clay, Honda City of Liverpool, as well as Chick-fil-A Watertown, Victory Sports Medicine and Orthopedics, the Millhouse Market, Mother's Cupboard, and we are the proud multimedia marketing partner exclusively of your Lemoyne College Dolphins. If it's happening at Lemoyne, it is happening on Wake Up Call. Every Wednesday during Dolphin time at 9 a.m. Eastern Time is our exclusive Save It and Keep It spot for the Dolphins. We also have them all throughout the year at different times as well. So we have a lot of bonus content, as well as every Wednesday at 9 a.m. for Dolphin time, worldwide at 9 a.m. Eastern Time. Every first and third Wednesday, AD and DT with Athletics Director Bob Beretta and myself, Dan Tortora. Every second and fourth Wednesday, the Dolphin Dive comes to you with student athletes, coaches, administration, future Dolphins, and alumni. Check out our content, including our exclusive series on realignment and reclassification. The only place to get the correct information on time as well is with us. You can go to the Lemoyne tab of WakeUpCallDT.com or subscribe to YouTube.com /WakeUpCallDT. For more information on your Dolphins, go to LeMoyneDolphins.com. Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora is also the exclusive multimedia marketing partner of your Bryan and Stratton Bobcats of Syracuse, bringing you the Bobcat Buzz every single month on Wake Up Call in our exclusive partnership. You have never gotten this coverage, never this way, and never a spotlight on Bryan and Stratton College of Syracuse like you've had here on Wake Up Call with Dan Tortora. In less than a year, we have brought you exclusive content from on-site at their James Street campus in Syracuse, for Bryan and Stratton College. We've been to Mother's Cupboard on 3709 James Street in Syracuse, 663 Old Liverpool Road in Liverpool, New York, at PB&J's Lunchbox, and at multiple Cafe Cubal locations with your Bobcats. You have heard from their coaches, administration, and student athletes. We have given you breaking news, exclusive content, first interviews of hired coaches, a coach that was stepping away, and so much more. If you want to get to know your Bobcats, go to the BSC Syracuse tab on WakeUpCallDT.com. Subscribe to YouTube.com/WakeUpCallDT as well. And for your Bobcats, you can also go to Syracuse.bscbobcats.com. With all that being said, find us on Facebook at WakeUpCallDT, Twitter at CallDT, Instagram at WakeUpCall_DT. Go to MON-FRI, which feels like you're going to an amusement park every day of the week. 201 Old 7 North Street in Liverpool, New York. And, of course, from the Cafe Cubal Studios, that's Isaac. I'm Dan. This is Tortora and Alford. And we thank you for being here. As always, appreciate you, brother.
Pleasure.
We'll talk with you soon. And I ended last week's show by saying Garrett Schrader's name 3 times. Isaac said, speak things into existence. So, my brother, my family, my dude, this is for you. Robert Drummond. We'll talk with you soon. Be safe. God bless. No stress. Do your best. Be good to each other and be good to yourselves. We'll talk with you soon.